Told me that she knew of a volleyball bar in Nashville, and she's like, I'm gonna go now that I know the basics. I was like, you should.
So are you in your Coach Gordon Bombay arc? Is this where you find your purpose?
Well, the thing is, I'm not very good, but when you know nothing, I can teach you how to pass. And
Gordon Bombay was a failure and an alcoholic.
Well,
and
I'm
then
just
he became
pretending
the coach of the famous Mighty Ducks.
Oh, okay. I was like, who's Gordon Bombay?
I feel that way about dancing. I'm not very good at dancing, but if you don't know how to dance, I'm a lot of fun.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm competent at a wedding level at dancing.
Yeah, I could help the beginners with the very basics, and I was proud of my girls.
But you know, it's more about the discipline and the love for teammates,
like
love for
ducks.
yourself,
like how ducks bond, or I can't remember whatever the speech was.
Quack,
yeah,
quack, 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 quack.
We actually use that sound clip in Congressional Dish every time I say lame ducks.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it just plays quietly in the background.
Tell you what, they're not even staying around now.
Yeah, I saw Ken Buck resign this morning.
Ken Buck had already said that he wasn't going to run again. And instead he's just like, I'm out. Like when? Next week.
Yeah.
I'm just leaving. It's like, yeah, I know my party has a 3-vote majority. What's the difference between 3 and 2? I'm out.
Is he, so he's actually resigning?
On March 22nd, yeah.
Deuces.
Hey, you know what?
He's like I'm trying to catch the last few days of spring break. I'm tanning these cheeks. Ken Buck's in a thong.
That was what they sometimes do, is just mentally check out and not go to Congress anymore. That's another thing you can do. I'm just going to go home. Please send the check to my house.
No, it is very clear that especially on the Republican side of the aisle, there are very deep wounds that I would say probably became untenable after the McCarthy debacle.
Yeah.
That people are like, you are not serious people. I don't want to do. And now also Johnson has had to wrangle this like weird majority. And so now people are actually just pissed at him in the way that they're pissed at any speaker, but especially one that can't do anything for them, which is what he's basically the situation he's in. So
well, the entire riot that got him the job was, we don't want any more continuing resolutions that kick the deadline, and we don't want any omnibus bills. And we've now had, I think, 4 total continuing resolutions, and we just got a 6 bill omnibus bill, which was over 1,000 pages and was available to read for about 30 seconds. Like all the stuff that the crazies said that they didn't want to happen happened with their new speaker.
Shock. Who could have seen that coming? Who could have seen that bringing less stability to a razor thin majority would mean a lot of omnibus bills? And I mean, it's like, or you do have an option. You could essentially cede your majority, because that would be the only way that it would work in the way that they want it to work, which is like, hey, just give up any of your priorities, because you're not going to get them if it's essentially a 50-50 house.
Yeah.
But no, they want all of their priorities, and they want things run exactly the way that they want run. And to do it, to drive better, they cut off their feet.
Yep. And now Ken Buck is just like, fuck all y'all.
Yeah. Although, yeah.
Hey, before we forget, I went to a RFK event the other night to see what he was about. Jen, I got you a copy of a book about him.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome. And I like the guy. I don't know if
you met him.
I met him briefly, and I went to. I was originally going to moderate a panel he was on, and that fell through for various reasons. Definitely not involving me or my background. Actually involving petty things that weren't me and other people that I won't go into. But I did meet him briefly, and I went to another talk that he did at University of Austin with Nadine Strawson of the ACLU, or formerly of the ACLU. And I was very surprised. I went in with extremely low expectations, as I do with anybody who's famous because they're related to somebody. But I thought he came out to me as a very strong civil libertarian, of like being very big on freedom of speech. He seemed to have an intuitive understanding of regulatory capture, which I do not find to be very common. So I don't know that I'd vote for him, but he is a possibility, and I liked him.
Well, his knowledge of regulatory capture is the thing that makes me somewhat excited about his candidacy, because I would like to see someone do something about it, especially when it comes to the FDA with drugs and food and that type of stuff. Because
there's weird stuff there. I've got Adam Andrzejewski coming on from Open the Books here in about 2-3 weeks on the political orphanage, and he's done a lot of deep dive. He is a budget watchdog at every unit of government. His organization looks at it, and he's done some interesting stuff on the incentive structure in FDA, NIH, and groups like that, where there's some interesting things where you can like you can get a patent that you as an employee sell to the NIH, and then they will sell it out, but you get a residual, and also you're the guy in charge of regulating the patent. Like, it's a very, there's some very odd loops in there where you could go, well, I could see how you would have an incentive to make pharmacological decisions. Like, there is a possibility for that. I don't know the full side of it, but there seems to be some odd things. And anybody that would run on, I'm going to end regulatory capture, would immediately get raised eyebrows from old Heaton.
Which, of course, leads us to the first ever intro exclusive Andrew Heaton Sports Question of the Week.
Wait, hold on, real quick.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
It's signed. This is signed by him.
Read it out loud.
Jen, your pal Heaton is a swell guy. Very smart. Right about everything. Keep up the good work. And then he signed it Andrew and then crossed that out. And then JFK Jr. and crossed that out. And then he put RFK Jr.
Yeah, it's definitely him. Definitely RFK Jr. Yep. Said I was right.
Hey.
Heaton, how do you think Aaron's knowledge of the RPO is going to affect his possible VP candidacy with RFK Jr.?
Yeah, what the fuck is this rumor all about?
Wow, you've asked a great question that is pretty multifaceted there. You know, I like Aaron. I think he's a straight shooter, but to be honest with you, I think he's a little rusty when it comes to understanding the full scope of RPO. RPI? What was it?
RPO.
Yeah, you know, like,
He kind of popularized it, though. So you're saying that there are now better.
I know
you would go with Jordan Love.
It's paradoxical. Paradoxical that he would popularize the term and yet not seem to fully understand the grasp of it. It's kind of like how Qui-Gon Jinn was, you know, like, he's the guy that brought in Obi-Wan Kenobi, but Obi-Wan Kenobi is really the superior Jedi. So that's what I'm saying, is that Aaron is the Qui-Gon Jinn of RPO.
Yeah.
And I think it will probably scuttle him as a vice presidential running mate candidate with RFK Jr.
You think the body's a better pick?
You know, I spoke to RFK Jr. about this for about probably 2-3 hours over the weekend.
You know, it's funny.
He is really concerned about RPO. So, you know,
it's literally the text that I got from Andrew Heaton was you making a joke about telling RFK that you would have to vet him more before you accepted a VP nomination. And then literally this week, New York Times, I believe, broke that finalists for RFK for his vice presidential nomination is Jesse the Body Ventura and New York Jets quarterback and innovator of the run pass option, Aaron Rodgers.
Which is why I don't believe it. Like, I feel like those are the names that you would float if you were trying to tank RFK's candidacy, to say that he wasn't serious. Although I like the idea of Jesse the Body Ventura.
Jesse Ventura would be, like, I don't know how old he is now, but he'd be a very interesting pick.
I want to say he's in his mid-60s. I used to be a regular on the show.
Far too young.
It'd be great to have those impressions come back into film.
Yeah,
I would love. He's a great person to do the impressions.
Like from a media perspective, Jesse Ventura would be able to get a lot of attention in addition to RFK.
Yeah. Hard turn into 9/11 trutherism that I think kind of damages him as a mainstream candidate.
I mean, did RFK Jr. do a poke of that a little bit? I know of people that were very angry at him for that presumed reason.
Look, I've got some questions about Building 7, and then there's Navy SEALs use thermite paint at all times to take down these, so like he was a little more animated in details on how 9/11 would be an inside job than the average person. And also he's got the bombast, right? So when he says it, people tend to remember it a little bit more than they would otherwise.
Well, I will say one of the big takeaways I had from RFK Jr. was not everything he was saying. It was that he is running an actual campaign. That was one of the big things I got, because like what I did last cycle and what I will hopefully do this cycle is I try to interview all of the third-party candidates, anybody that's got an actual shot electorally. So I interviewed the Alliance Party, the Green Party, the Constitution Party, the Libertarian Party. And sometimes it's very clearly this is, when you get into like independent candidates, like this is somebody that's running as a vanity project. They're running this, they're running this because they want to say a thing. RFK Jr. definitely had people that were slickly organizing that meet and greet. He had security guards that were not at all chatty, in my opinion. Didn't like those guys. And but I was like, oh, this is a thing. He's doing this for real. That was my takeaway. Was I did not get the impression he's running to sell books or he's running to get picked up as Secretary of Agriculture. I think he's actually putting a shoulder into it.
Well, he's
Good.
He's enemy number one for the Democrats because it doesn't look like the No Labels outfit are going to be able to get a A-list candidate. Looks like some dude from Georgia might be there.
Or like
might be their
were
pick.
they floating like the Democratic mayor of Dallas or something? They were.
Yeah.
I was kind of surprised too. I'm like, there've got to be more like, you know, angry centrists out there.
Well,
Like get Barry Weiss to run or something.
yeah, the question would be whether either are you going to pick somebody from the media that doesn't have a future in politics, that wants to elevate their station, but that doesn't really help No Labels, because No Labels, their entire reason to do something is like, we're serious.
We're the adults in the room. Yes.
So they're going to pick a boring person as opposed to an A-list person, which means down the list of the Democratic machines, predator vision of potential threats. RFK Jr. elevated now that we've seen enough polls that there was initially a thought that maybe that RFK Jr. would draw more from the Trump side than it would from the Biden side. That does not look to be the case statistically. Trump does better in 5-way polling races than he does one-on-one. And so RFK is the largest polling person there. So
what about like
they're gonna destroy him.
With No Labels? Have John Huntsman and Jeff Flake both like said we're not interested? Because I feel like both of them would be good out, like former Republican, sane people.
I thought the idea was to have one former Democrat and one former Republican.
Yeah. But I mean, like mix and match, right? So you bounce the ticket out with another Democrat. Like you'd have like, he's probably too old to do it, but you'd have like Lieberman with Jeff Flake, or
Lieberman.
You'd have like Joe Manchin with John Huntsman or something.
Yeah, Joe's out. Joe just wants to live on his boat, do donuts in the
live
Potomac.
off that sweet, sweet coal money.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, the No Labels crew, all I know is this: in watching all the assorted people talk amongst themselves on Twitter, there's a lot of LOL, more like no candidate party stuff, where the RFK, I think, Jen, you're right. If we're doing sources say RFK Jr. seriously considering Aaron Rodgers, and then the Pat McAfee show the next day is like, yeah, Aaron didn't know that was going to be a thing that was out there, and he is currently in Costa Rica preparing for an ayahuasca retreat.
Yeah, I saw that, and I'm like, someone's trying to spread
it. Is this just RFK trying to meet his baseball heroes? Is that it? Surely not. Surely not.
Well, considering either of them play baseball,
but
either of them play baseball.
Aaron Rodgers plays baseball.
Football.
No.
Football.
Oh,
not football now.
Right.
He has always played football.
Yes, I knew that.
Football, we mean the NFL,
Right.
not.
Yeah, the American football, gridiron.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
a beloved sport of our fair country.
Yeah. Big free agency period.
Yeah. No, I a man of the people, and I'm not saying this because I am also actively considering a run at office. I just love American football and American moms. American moms, I think, are really what hold the thing together. And apple pie and Jesus and
all of them in the kitchen.
All the things that you like, I like. Whatever the thing is you like, I also like that thing.
I like weird, smirking, strange senators in their kitchen talking about how their moms, the country's going to shit.
Only if they're talking really breathy.
Yeah.
Katie, Brett, we sometimes are worried. You two don't need to be worried. You're a senator. You're fine.
You're fine.
By the way, that's how I knew the polling is back on the State of the Union, and Biden has done worse since it. So everybody was very excited on the Democratic side about how much they liked the State of the Union. And now there's literally the opposite of any kind of reaction to it. But I first knew that it wasn't going to be a hit because people were talking more about Katie Britt than they were the Biden State of the Union.
In my Mexico bubble, I didn't see any of it. I know that Biden didn't fall asleep or fart or anything.
Oh, no, I think
smashing success.
Biden was at least 50 milligrams of Adderall. He was 50. He was, I don't do that before I go on mic.
I would imagine what I imagined precluded that was Biden taking one of those big like Amazon like knives that like a drug lord would have and just like smashing some kind of as yet introduced to the market pharmaceutical,
pre-FDA approved,
taking just like a gigantic rip, and then he's like, "Here's the deal."
Yeah, did he?
And corn pop. Yeah,
he was yelling. He was very yelly.
It was very yelling.
Okay.
My assessment was, Jen, you know when you get a bag of potato chips and you open it and then 70% of it turned out to be air?
Yes.
That was the State of the Union address, as is every State of the Union address. It was really like every State of the Union address. It was a campaign speech that Congress allowed the president to do. 70% of it was just a grab bag of aphorisms. The remaining 30%, I disagreed with some of it. I agreed with some of it. It didn't alter my opinion on anything. The cringy parts to me were, he did slur a bit, and it was like, just before I could even think about the political implications of whether I like or dislike this fact, I would just go, oh, no, please. Because my inner performer would feel embarrassed for it.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then the other bit is, and this is just performance Heaton, this is not political Heaton. I fucking hate heckling in Congress. Like I would,
so.
if we were going to do like an actual Prime Minister's questions thing where it's like, no, the point of this is to be heckled and see how you respond. Great. That sounds terrific to me. I don't like the breach in decorum.
You need to pick a lane.
I know.
I know. You're like, fuck this monarchical bullshit. Like we need to bring these people back down to size. And then they're screaming and you're like,
yeah,
oh, no, please, my doilies.
Yeah. Conceded. I need to go do an ayahuasca trip with Aaron Rodgers and figure out where I stand on these things.
Yeah, it was notable from my perspective in that usually you can kind of trick the other side into doing more bipartisan cheering, so you look more popular amongst all of the country. So you'll do something like, and that's why we've continued to believe that children are our future. Applause break, everybody stands up, and then if you're a Democrat, you're like, and the Green New Deal, and like, and then you kind of catch them, right? But this was like all just like, we're the best, Republicans are terrible. Like the best part of it for Biden, in my opinion, was
I think the illegal immigration bit was the best part for Biden, where he was like, hey, all the Republicans, you liked the bill I put out, and then all of a sudden you didn't like it. What happened there? And they're all kind of booing, and he's like, you liked it because we were going to hire more guards, and then you suddenly didn't like it. What's up with that? So, like, I thought that was the moment where I was like,
that's what I was going to say. He's at his best when you can tell he spent 50 years in the Senate.
Yeah.
Where he's like, he had a moment where at the very end, he's like, let me finish with this. And the Republicans cheered for like the second time all night. And then he's like, oh, yeah. I know that you don't want me to say anything more, Lindsey, but I'm going to finish with this. And then it cut to Lindsey Graham and he's giggling. And it's like, okay, well, that makes him seem, at the very least, it's what people I think elected him for, which is a steady hand.
Amiable Benadryl dispenser is what I liked about him.
But somebody who's like, oh, you know how this works. You're not learning on the job. You're not a bull in a china shop. We might find it to be a little gross that you're very chummy, but I think that's a fringy online thing. The people that really just want a president to do president things, they want them to be joking with senators from across the aisle.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
I forgive his slurring when it happens because I'm aware that he had a speech impediment when he was younger. But I don't know how many other people know that.
Of his career. I hate that. I hate that excuse.
Which is kind of, I find that, well, he used to stutter in some of his speeches. I do remember that, but the slurring is a little different.
There was the 40 years where he was at his most powerful that he did not slur or stutter.
You know what if there's a Democratic strategist, which you guys ought to dig up, and I'm amazing this wasn't a bigger thing. When Trump was in office, maybe like 2019, I was hanging out with my parents. We were watching some speech he was giving while we were eating dinner. It was just in the background. And very clearly his dentures fell out. Like very clearly his dentures dropped by like half an inch, and you could see he was so fucking angry, and he was going on with his speech anyway because he couldn't turn around and adjust his dentures because you know exactly what he was doing. So he just had to power through, and it was weird, and it sounded like he was having a stroke because his dentures were falling out of his head. And like, I don't know how Democrats, I'm giving you a gift. Lord Uncle Heaton's giving you a gift. Find this clip, and then whenever Trump brings that shit up, or whenever people bring up how old Biden is, just play Trump's dentures falling out of his head.
The problem is you can't go head on with that. You can't say like, oh, Trump's also old, because then you're just keeping the conversation on old.
Yeah.
You don't want the conversation to be about old because you're going to lose every time.
Yeah, good point.
Because Donald Trump goes and does extemporaneous speeches for an hour and a half, and Joe Biden doesn't. And so that's a problem.
Can I, political tactic question for you.
Yeah.
Why do they do rebuttals? What is the thinking
That's
on
actually
this?
the best question
Because
it is a death slot.
It's like if I were in the Senate or the House or whatever, and they went, "Hey, Heaton, you're a young buck," because I'm 40, which makes me a teenager in Congress years. You're a rising star in the Independence Party or whatever. Why don't you give the rebuttal? I'd be like, "Fuck no, this is a death sentence. Like, I'm going to do something weird." And it's all anybody's going to talk about. The best case scenario is no one remembers me. The worst case, most likely scenario is I become cold open on Saturday Night Live. Like, don't do it. And I don't. Whose mind is this changing?
So, all right. Counter. If I were asked to do it, I would not do it the way that people often do it, including Katie Britt, which is, this is my time to shine. The president and then me, co-equals that are going to give like very well-written, well-practiced speeches, because that's what we do when we are in the spotlight, me and the president. Instead, you say, look, I had this speech. We worked on it for like 2 months because we wanted to not waste your time, but I just watched what you guys watched and I can't do it. Let me just go to these notes. At this point, he said, blah, 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 blah. Here are the facts. It's not that. It's
an actual rebuttal.
And keep it like 7 minutes, like a tight 7.
But make it earnest, make it active, and actually talk about the speech as opposed to the general elements of like, Joe Biden says that the border's secure.
Yeah.
Oh,
and my husband and I looks down as if thinking whether I should reveal this to the American people, looks down to the right. Sometimes we worry, oh, I've decided to reveal this inner torment to you. Oh, that was not
Katie Britt's husband, a former player in what league?
NFL. This is one of the power couples in the U.S. Senate. Not a lot of senators are married to former NFL stars.
Is it Kenny Britt?
Except for, of course, Mitch McConnell, whose wife is in the NFL.
From Austin, Texas, I'm Justin Robert Young.
I'm Andrew Heaton.
I'm Jen Briney.
And we're not wrong on this edition of the program. We will talk about the incoming, possibly here, ban of TikTok, depending on when you're listening to this, as well as the massive kerfuffle going on at Boeing. That and your emails. Jen, you are tanned, ready, and rested, coming off of your trip down Mexico way.
Yeah, it was very nice. It was a bachelorette party. And it was just nice. One of the
Were you woo-girling?
A little bit.
Yeah,
a little bit. We had to do it. This particular resort threw a really big party on Friday night, but they had nothing for Saturday. It was just lame boomer shows. And so what we did is we got a bunch of glow sticks, and then I had solar lights, which I am going to bring camping. They're amazing. And so we set up these solar lights out on the beach where it was pitch black, and then we played games with the glow sticks. We had like ring toss and tic-tac-toe, and so we threw ourselves on.
This is going to love this.
Well, they're all dead now because glow sticks only last like a couple hours. But
those were the last ones in America.
Yeah, you can buy them if you want to play because it was fun. But yeah, our little beach party, we did a little woo girling out there. Nice. Yeah. And then there were people that were like, oh, look, there's an event out there. And then they got out there and it's like, no, this is not free.
Excuse me, private party.
Yeah, private party. This is more fun than what's going on inside. Absolutely. But you may not join.
Please provide your woos at the door. 2 weeks ago, TikTok's U.S. executives optimistically reported to their Singapore headquarters that the app was not facing an immediate threat of being banned in the United States, buoyed by signs like President Biden's campaign had just joined the platform. Narrator. They were wrong. The assessment quickly proved inaccurate as bipartisan lawmakers and the Biden administration officials have quietly advanced legislation to either ban TikTok or force its sale away from Chinese ownership. That became official this morning as we are recording this when the House overwhelmingly passed the legislation, pushing it to the Senate. The move is partly driven by concerns over TikTok videos related to the Israeli-Hamas conflict, which intensified the push against the app. TikTok, with over 170 million U.S. users, were caught off guard by the broad support for the bill, which the House did indeed pass. Despite previous survival from efforts to limit its operation in the U.S., this legislation represents TikTok's most severe challenge in America yet. TikTok's initial optimism was based on past resilience, and they went very hard to try to keep their position, mobilizing their user base to call congresspeople, something that according to reporting on Capitol Hill, had varying different levels of effectiveness. Some said that it was probably the worst thing that they could possibly do to have a bunch of people streaming into.
You're also trying to motivate the youngest cohort in America that can vote, which is also the hardest cohort in America to vote. So even if it worked, like it didn't have blowback, the likelihood that was going to convince congressmen to do anything, I think, is
Meanwhile, TikTok did find unlikely allies. Donald Trump and GOP firebrand Marjorie Taylor Greene and Vivek Ramaswamy criticized the bill for being overbroad and benefiting Meta, or as Trump referred to it on his Truth Social account this week, Zuckerschmuck.
Wait, is Zuckerschmuck the name for Zucker or Meta? What is the nickname for?
All of the above.
Yeah. It's going to benefit Zuckerschmuck, which is Mark.
Which sounds like a great jam. Like if Zuckerschmuck were available at the grocery store, I'd buy it sight unseen.
The Squad also wound up criticizing the bill and didn't vote for it, which, man, that murderer's row. Donald Trump, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Vivek Ramaswamy, and the Squad.
Wow. Yeah.
Shoulder to shoulder.
Yep.
I have the stats here. There were 15 Republican no's and 50 Democratic no's, but it was an overwhelming. It was 352 to 65 at the end. So it's overwhelmingly supported in the House.
Now moves to the Senate. Heaton, should TikTok be forced to divest from ByteDance, its parent company?
Can I ask you guys a question?
Yeah.
Where the hell is CFIUS? Where the fuck is that? Because this is
they've
where
been involved in this the whole time. I did the episode on this a year ago.
Yeah.
And CFIUS has been working with TikTok to basically like move all of the tech stuff to Oracle. And CFIUS seems to be just fine with what TikTok is doing.
Mean, have they? And I tried to find this earlier today. So this is not rhetorical. I don't know. Have they issued a report? I could not find anything from CFIUS on whether or not they said yes, this is not a threat or not.
There was actually reporting on this week that CFIUS is leaning on Congress to make a decision.
I don't want them to do that. Are they doing that because the executive branch is telling them to, or why are they?
I don't know. Because this is something that goes back to ByteDance buying Musical.ly, which was the app that then became TikTok.
So let me back for people that don't know what the hell we're talking about. CFIUS is the Committee on Foreign Influence in the United States. I think that's right. Jen, did I get the acronym correct?
I don't know.
CFIUS is the organization that looks at transactions from foreign countries to determine whether or not they're a national security threat. And they're one of the few intergovernmental bodies that I think's great and does a bang-up job. You guys will back me up on this. I don't tend to talk about the government that way. I think CFIUS historically has done a really good job in its decisions. I read a lot of their stuff when I was getting my master's degree because I was looking at purchases like that. And when I looked at their individual decisions, like I think like a Saudi group, I think it was a Saudi group, wanted to buy like the port of Houston or something, and everybody flipped the fuck out because it's during the Bush years. And CFIUS went, hey, they're not doing security. That is still handled by federal agencies. What they're doing is they're handling the parking lot and the logistics. That's it. And if we go to war, we could kick them out the following day. I think that they tend to have a pretty level, balanced, and well-researched approach on things that actually constitute as national security threat and things that don't. Their decision carries a lot of weight with me. If CFIUS said this is a national security threat, I would defer to them unless something really weird happened that made me question their authority on it. I would defer to them and go, yep, let's divest them. They haven't done that. And so I'm only looking at Congress, which I frankly don't trust. And I'm looking at them going, all right, option one, it is possible that China is harvesting data or trying to goose the algorithm to affect our...
So unrest amongst Americans.
Yes. Option one. Legitimate fear. I don't trust the Chinese government either. Option two, this is political, and this is Facebook trying to get its tendrils in a bunch of congressmen to knock out its biggest competition. That also seems very likely to me. And when I'm confronted with these two things, and I don't have a means to tie break it, again, CFIUS would be that, I'm going to default on giving people more options and giving people more ability to interact with each other, get information, and express themselves. I'm not, my default is not to restrict the expression of the American people. So until I get a credible report from CFIUS to that effect, I would not vote for this.
I'll look into that because I'm going to do a Congressional Dish episode on this. I came back and had so many messages from people being like, will you please tell us what the truth is about this? So,
which, by the way, just like the Patriot episode we're going to do, Justin was like, hey, Jen, we're going to talk about Kate Middleton. I don't know if this is something that would piss you off. And you were like, the fuck are you talking about?
Yeah, I have no idea.
You could just tell that, like, Jen had, like, an iced tea in her hand. It was slightly sunburned. It was like, who are you?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, he's like, are you burned out on this topic? I'm like, I don't know what you're referring to.
All right. One, and we'll get to this when we talk about it, but like the idea that something dumb like did Kate Middleton Photoshop her family photo, that seems like the kind of stuff that I would be paying attention to almost exclusively if I were on vacation.
If I were here.
Yeah.
But what I
did... You're saying that that's not like junk food to eat on vacation?
On this vacation, I locked my phone in the safe so I would have access to none of it. Yeah, and I think that's why actually I am feeling better. So at least once a month now, I'm going to lock the phone up, no internet at all. It was very helpful. But yeah, that's why I...
Sounds dangerous.
And what's interesting about this TikTok bill is how fast it moved, because before I left, I did get some messages on Twitter. I was one of the they who was completely wrong about this, because someone was saying there's this bill in this committee. And I said, well, you know, I'll pay attention to it when it actually moves, because right now it's hanging out in committee. I talked about this a year ago. I don't think it's moving, but like, I've got my eye on it. Don't worry about it. And then I came back a week later, and it took 8 days from was introduced in the committee, voted out of the committee, and now it's been passed by the House. That is lightning speed in the House of Representatives. And I don't know why.
Because there's bipartisan anger against China, and you can grandstand on China, which is real popular.
Here's what happened. Here's what happened that exploded it out of committee. There was a briefing by the intelligence community to the House that, according to reporting, showed algorithmic thumb on the scale, according to the intelligence communities, that exploded the divisions between Hamas and Israel. And that they were looking at that as, okay, this is proof positive that an issue that wouldn't normally get the same kind of traction, and this is even before the offensive into Gaza, this was like on October 8th, that was a sign that China is sowing unrest. And that ultimately, to me, is the reason why this is happening is not because it's Chinese spyware, because as Tom Merritt was on PX3 this week, as he explained, if we're worried about Chinese spyware, there's a million different mobile games that have more registered users, that have the same privileges into your phone, that are also owned by mainland Chinese companies. And similarly, the CCP could just knock on their door and say, hey, do whatever we want, and they have no choice, which is that side of it. It's because there is a cultural footprint that an American company, and therefore the American government, has no true control over.
And see, that the bit that worries me there too is, and I will defer to Jen on this when you put the episode together, or if you've read some of this previously. Based on my cursory reading, I glanced at the bill. It seems to me what this bill does is it empowers the president to determine whether or not a company is under influence of a foreign adversary, which is already something of a wiggle term there, and then to forced divestment, or I think forced divestment if that's the case. I don't feel good about the idea that if Donald Trump gets reelected and there's some platform that goes really well with independents, that guy's in charge.
TikTok super fan Donald Trump.
Yeah,
I don't like. I can, in the same way that 100%, the Chinese government would like to fuck with algorithms to benefit them. They are not going to get Soviet Unioned. They're going to control every fucking thing they can forever. So like that is a legitimate fear. I also think that there's a very good chance that if you just give the president the ability to cancel media outlets he doesn't like because one of the people on the board's from another country, that it's polling well with RFK Jr., something like that. That is something that worries me.
So one clarification. The argument that this bill specifically is not overbroad. It's that it names ByteDance specifically as...
Okay, I actually did read it this morning. That's why I'm...
I'm going to shut the fuck up, Jen, please.
I'm rocking this Ugly Betty vibe because I got really into it and like assembled my team, and I was like, we have to do an episode right now. So I think that this is unbelievably broad, and I really don't want this thing to become law, because while it does name TikTok and ByteDance, it is so much more beyond that. So first of all, it's not just TikTok, the app. This applies to any website, app. It can be either desktop or mobile, or augmented or immersive tech application, which sounds VR to me.
Just
what
all
would
the
that
ways
mean?
that TikTok operates right now. So TikTok has native web apps, mobile apps, and AR, VR.
If this was aimed just at TikTok, they could aim it just at TikTok. They didn't do that. They aimed it at any website or app or,
that is owned by ByteDance.
No, any. That was the difference. So while they did name
that was not my reading of the bill, but I'll defer to you.
Yeah. So what I said, it makes it illegal. And okay, so it's not just targeted at TikTok either. The people that would pay the fines are the companies that enable TikTok to go out into the world. And so it would make it illegal to provide services to distribute and update, quote, foreign adversary controlled apps, unquote. So the definition of foreign adversary, there's a list, and I will get more into this in Congressional Dish, but there is a list that is created within the executive branch. And it's not just China. So there's a bunch of different countries that are foreign adversaries. So it's not just China, and it's not just that one app, that one TikTok. It can be anything that is controlled by a foreign adversary. And it makes it illegal to provide services to those apps via a marketplace, which means that it would be illegal for Apple and Google to provide TikTok or anything like it. It would also be illegal to provide internet hosting services that enable the distribution. That would be Oracle or anything like it. And so when I looked at the fines would actually be on Apple, Google, Oracle, and those companies, and the fines are out of fucking control.
I hear. Let's not put the cart before the horse. The first phase of this is that ByteDance would have, I believe it's 5 months to divest themselves from TikTok.
Yeah.
If that does not happen, those are the mechanisms by which the ban happens.
But those are the mechanisms that would be law. That's what I'm concerned about. This is so far beyond TikTok because you get those 5 months, which this is clearly aimed at TikTok and ByteDance.
ByteDance is named in the law.
It is.
Yes.
To be the first one. But this would also be standing by for the next time there is an app controlled by, or they say is controlled by, a foreign adversary. Because when you look at control too, I need to look at this in more detail, but so the definition of foreign adversary controlled is anything that's domiciled in, headquartered in, has a principal place of business in, or is organized under the laws of a foreign adversary country. And that means that it's a company or a combination of companies that has a 20% stake in that app or website. So it's like, it's not even a controlling stake. It would just be 20%. So when I look at what they're putting on the books, the kind of power they're giving the executive branch, that's what controls me. I think we're doing a disservice to the overall issue here by branding this the TikTok bill, because this could affect so much more than TikTok. We are giving the executive branch power that I think we might come to regret.
I do agree that we do need to understand the full element of this, and when we should not skip by it. But I do think that we might regret it as a element cracked open for the security state or for the executive branch. But this bill specifically is tailored toward ByteDance and TikTok.
Sure, it's tailored, but the door's open for more stuff.
Theoretically.
Yeah.
But also, this is not the first time that we have controls over foreign ownership, especially over elements that we find particularly core to the American experience.
The way to do that would be CFIUS would make that recommendation, and we would proceed based on that.
And by the way, the problem with the CFIUS situation is that at the point that ByteDance bought Musical.ly, we were in a high point for Chinese investment in American companies. We were looking at that as finally we're getting our money back because we relaxed the WTO stuff with China. We allowed them to build up their manufacturing sector. We relied on them. And this was looked at as good. Now we're reaping the rewards. Now Chinese investment comes to American shores. We're in a very different place from when that acquisition happened.
And Brooke, I don't want to lose sight of one thing too. If this were just it has to be spun off situation, I'm 100% with Jen on the big picture implications of this. Exactly. On TikTok specifically, if it were just that, I wouldn't have a big problem with going, look, if something has the capacity to juice an algorithm, you have to spin it off and it has to be domestically controlled. So you're not banning the business, but you are saying it has to be within the domestic United States, something like that. But in this instance, that's going to be the same thing because who's going to buy them? Microsoft, Facebook, Do you think Lena Dunham's going to be okay? Or not Lena Dunham. Lena Khan. Excuse me. Lena Dunham won't either. Lena Khan. She's not going to want this. Like the Biden administration's not going to be okay with a merger and acquisition occurring between this and any existing superstructure.
Microsoft was the one that when the Trump situation was happening. Microsoft was the most likely. I don't think that they would pass regulatory.
No, this is the death penalty for me.
No. I think it would pass regulatory with Microsoft, because Microsoft, by and large, does not have a place in social, and they have anything that they've started socially, they've kind of wound down in the intervening years. I mean, I guess Skype would be the closest thing that they have to it, but otherwise, they're pretty much an enterprise. And then OpenAI, obviously, is their big supercharger thing now. It would not pass regulatory with Google. It would not pass regulatory with Facebook. Those are the two biggest social players. But here's the reason why it's actually a death sentence. Because the last time that we did this dance with the Trump administration, ByteDance runs Douyin, which is the TikTok of China. And TikTok in America does good. Douyin in China is their bread and butter. They will not do anything that changes that. Douyin and TikTok run off the same algorithm. So even if you sold the app would be the users on the app and the data that you get from that stuff. China said last time that they will not allow ByteDance to sell the algorithm. The algorithm is too important to China. So that is something where without the algorithm, TikTok is essentially, a ghost ship, or at least it's going to be. Since the Trump dance that we did with TikTok, both Google and Facebook built clones of that service. Either of them have as good of an algorithm. TikTok's is the best in the world, and there's really no technical comparison.
But that sounds like the goal to me, because we know that Meta and, old Twitter had these backdoors for the U.S. government. I think that's what they want. I don't think they give a flying fuck about the algorithm being good. They want it something that our government can say, hey, ease up on allowing people to see as much as they're seeing out of Gaza. Like, I do think that the fact that this is one company that our government can't go to and be like, hey, we need some censorship, I think that's central to this. And that was confirmed by the guy who wrote this bill. He said it on the House floor today. Mike Gallagher, who, by the way, that little fascist went to the same high school as me. But they're making it. No, he's younger than me. But
so he is little.
Yeah, a little boy.
Can I ask, why do you think, Justin, that CFIUS isn't making an announcement on this?
Because they don't want to have to go and roll back a thing that they already approved back when it was really cool to approve.
Project Texas is what they said would do exactly what you said. Say like
it has to be run by Oracle in the United States, and there's a firewall between our data and China. They, board of directors still exist, but the data can't go through the pipe or whatever.
Oracle operates it. They don't make the calls.
Can't CFIUS just put out a press saying, yeah, we already looked at this and it's fine?
I will look into that. I'll get you that.
CFIUS, I think, is on the board of the company that is run by Oracle that is managing all the data. That was part of the deal that happened when all the stuff happened with Trump initially.
There was one member of Congress today, and I can't remember his name, but I saw it on Twitter, who voted against this. And he said he's on the Intelligence Committee, and while he has seen concerning things, he said that he hasn't seen anything that's so bad that warrants us becoming the thing that we're saying that China is. Like, we are now, and I'm concerned about that too. Like, are we actually going to say that information that originates in other countries, even countries we don't agree with, can't come into the United States? Like, do we really want only information originating here? I think it's dangerous in a lot of different ways.
Yeah, I don't want the government being my dad with information.
Yeah.
I'll make that call myself. Thank you.
Like, I don't have TikTok on my phone because I know it's Chinese originated, and I just don't need any more social media.
I don't want to be on an FBI watch list because I'm too old for that thing.
Yeah, but we can make these decisions for ourselves. Parents can make these decisions for their kids. I think the idea that we're all a bunch of mindless robots that are just going to, follow China's lead is kind of ridiculous. And I think there's a lot of emotion behind these votes. And my concern is it's not CFIUS and it's not really facts that are driving this bill. but it's emotions of it. And I'm also concerned that a lot of these idiots didn't read it, because the ones that are saying that it's not too broad did not look at the text of this bill, because I saw it within the first page. So
it's not their job.
It's only 16 pages too. It's not like
it's not a long
really
bill.
hard.
Okay. It's not a long bill.
Yeah. There are some details that I need to like go down a rabbit hole to get, but if you've read a bill before, you can spot the red flags right away.
Yeah, I agree with you. Anything that puts this kind of hammer in the hand of the president, it's going to be hard to ever take that away.
Yeah.
I do think that we already have things in place that restrict foreign influence in America. And I do think that, again, the largest part of this is culture. Not only because TikTok is very popular, but because a lot of media is downstream of TikTok. If you look at what gets on Good Morning America, what we understand is legacy media, normie media. This is stuff that originates on TikTok, that becomes popular on TikTok. And part of that, trust me, I can bore you all with a 9-hour journalism recitation about there is a king media, and then there is everybody that follows it. And we have not done ourselves a particularly good service in terms of creating stories locally. We tend to look for things that have social proof ever since the advent of social media. So instead of saying, oh, I'm going to, with all the gifts that I have as being a part of a big journalism staff, I'm going to find interesting stories and I'm going to flesh them out and make them bigger. We tend to take the lazy route, we being journalists, and say, well, this has a bunch of views on TikTok. Let me interview this person. Story done. I'm done with that. And so I do think that for what is animating this, I agree with you, Jen, is fear. It is fear that the American government doesn't have control of American culture, and there are no brakes on it. And whether or not the algorithm just uniquely said that on October 8th, American citizens wanted to know more about the Palestinian cause than they did before that, then
God knows I have.
And I think that that's the argument. That the argument is that the stuff that you got was downstream of TikTok. And that started not when the Gaza incursion happened. It started the day after.
Pause to make sure I understand.
October
this is very interesting. So it's not.
Hold on a second. Are you saying that I have TikTok brainworms and that's why I'm concerned with all the dead people in Gaza?
I'm saying that the argument that you heard on the House when there were people talking about that are insinuating that that is something that is happening in America. I'm not saying that you do. I'm saying that that is something that people are saying, that the Congress people who voted for this bill are saying.
Yeah. And I guess that's one of the things that concerns me, where it's like, I think what these people really want is the ability not to stop the violence in Gaza, but to stop us from seeing it, because that's what they're upset about. They're not upset that there's tens of thousands of people and we're protesting. They're upset that we are able to watch it when they really want us to see the Israel perspective, because if they had control the way they kind of do over Meta, there just wouldn't be as much fed to us and it wouldn't go as viral, because people are sharing this stuff for a reason.
I mean, but you saw plenty of it on Meta.
Yeah, but a lot of the education I did, I was reading books and watching documentaries. So it's like, yeah, I've seen a lot of it on Meta, but that wasn't my main source of it. But I'm also weird. So there's that. But I think one of the reasons the algorithm is feeding it to me and to other people is that I'm genuinely curious what is going on there every day. So I don't know that it's China that's, because I watch these hearings with the TikTok CEO, I don't know that they have the power to tinker with the algorithm to just feed us a bunch of Gaza stuff, because I'm also getting a bunch of stuff from the Israeli perspective as well. So I don't know that it's anything other than the algorithm recognizing that this is a conflict that people are interested in and feeding us that. We might be seeing information from Gaza because people are curious about what's going on there. And our members of Congress don't like it.
Is, I think, the argument that people found more persuasive, that it was pre-incursion into Gaza, that the Palestinian perspective was being fed via TikTok.
I want to make sure I understand the point you made earlier, Justin, because I think it's a very interesting one. When I worked in cable television, I became aware that there is an ecosystem in terms of information.
Yeah.
Where a person writes a blog article's picked up by local news, clip goes viral.
Yes.
We see that at our morning meeting and we decided to do a story on it. We didn't go out with actual journalists to break a story.
No.
That would be incredibly expensive and exhausting. So what we do is we aggregate things that are upriver from us, and then we talk about them on the national media, right? So you're putting that forward as there's a kind of like origin point in terms of media narratives. And so the danger with TikTok would not just be that our teenagers are brainwashed, but that they are the origin point and everything else is coming downriver of that.
Right.
So
now,
China would end up controlling the media cycle.
Right now, it would be hard to say that there is a more influential tech platform than TikTok. And tech platforms, the influential tech platform, Facebook, Twitter, now TikTok, has, in my opinion, driven national news in America probably for the last 15 years, since the fall of nightly news and all the things that we used to understand as the vanguards of the American news conversation. As we have fractured into tiny warlords, it has been the digital sector that has controlled it. And I don't think that there's much of an argument to say that there is a more influential platform than TikTok. Now, TikTok's a very diffuse platform. I will say that. And I'm on it. I don't know. Are you on it, Heaton? So I guess I'm the only TikTok user. Justin or Young. But it's a very diffuse platform. Like, mostly it serves me. It on October 8th, I didn't get calls of why the Zionists need to be run into the sea. I mostly got what I normally get, old Patrice O'Neill clips. But
great basketball player.
Oh boy.
But I don't think that there is much of an argument that if you look at what big stories are or things that bubble into Twitter, Instagram, Shorts, any of the other platforms, that they are down Reddit. They are downriver from TikTok.
Yeah, I wouldn't argue with that. I just don't think that I want every single app that we have access to be one that cooperates with the United States government, because I like knowing what's going on in the world. And I would like to have the ability to download an app to get information from overseas, even if it's adversarial to the United States, to understand what those people are talking about. I think it's important. And if we silo ourselves off, we're going to end up with leadership that's maybe not behaving in our best interests, but behaving in their own, because we don't understand the other perspective.
I agree with all of that. I'll add something that would be helpful for the anti-TikTok people. In searching for CFIUS, I thought I found a report from CFIUS, and I was about to do a 180 because I was reading this and was going, "Oh my God, like smoking gun shit. If CFIUS is saying this, I'm okay. Yeah, like, let's divest it." And then I was like, "Wait a minute, this is not language CFIUS would use." And then I realized, no, this is a letter that Senator Blumenthal wrote to CFIUS. Yeah. So it's a senator writing to CFIUS. And what was so irritating about it is that it didn't have any citations. And I find this a lot with like, when politicians are fucking with you, go to like, I won't even mention who it is, but I went to a research for something else, and I went to somebody's website the other day, and there were like very specific economic statistics, but they were summed up and didn't have any citations. So it was like, the Fed has said that blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, the Fed did not say that. That is your assessment of it. And there was no way I could find out how they got there. Same with the Blumenthal letter. If it like, he was claiming there are leaked audio of TikTok employees that have said that Operation Texas doesn't actually work, that the algorithm is controlled by Beijing, that they are sending the data to Beijing. And I'm like, if so, that is very damning.
Yeah.
Show me the link to that so I can figure out where you're getting this from. Is this somebody said they heard it? Is there actual audio that you can hear with a translator? Like, that stuff would be...
My TikTok episode where the CEO was interviewed, what was stunning to me is how many times he said, "Senator, that's simply not true. That's not true. What you just said is not true." He was saying it over and over and over again. So they kept saying these things to him, and he's like, "I don't know how to answer this because you're saying something that's just not true." So that's why I'm concerned that a lot of this is just a fact-free.
Well, the National Director of Intelligence included in their yearly threat report, they included TikTok on it, and they had fairly damning language about misinformation campaigns that could be directed by force.
The DNI has always been very trustworthy.
Not saying, so take it for what you will. Salt to taste. Same thing with the FBI Director Christopher Wray. He said he essentially said, similar to that Blumenthal letter, that number one, I don't think that there's much of an argument that the algorithm is being controlled by Beijing, in that it is now. It gets ported to Project Texas, and these updates come in, and actually there has been reporting that the people at Project Texas have to then email back to TikTok and therefore break the firewall just to say, hey, we don't know what this is supposed to do or if this is working correctly. So there has been some reporting that the firewall has been eroded, but not necessarily to say, hey, here's your data.
Well, there's two different issues here, right? There's the algorithm, and then there's the privacy, where I think that Project Texas kind of takes care of the privacy because it is stored here in Texas. But the algorithm, where that is something that originates in China and it is the same as the Chinese one, you had the name for it. Yeah, Douyin. That's something they're two kind of separate issues. And the algorithm, I mean, we could really solve all of this with all the different social media companies if we just had transparency in algorithms, make that necessary in the United States in order to operate here. And that way it wouldn't just be TikTok, it would be Meta and Twitter and everything else. So we know how they're manipulating us.
We know Twitter's now.
What's that?
Because Elon put their algorithm.
See, and it did not kill X, did it? So it's like that's something that we could require that would be fair to everyone and would just let us know how these things are working. But that is not the solution we're doing here. They're just trying to get rid of TikTok in the United States.
Even if we made that, I mean, I guess that would be one way to do it, is to say, all right, everybody, I'll show you mine if you show me yours. All your algorithms out on the table. We're doing it right now, because TikTok would not do that. TikTok
well, then that's their choice.
By China from doing.
Then that's their choice. And if that was the choice they decided to make and therefore couldn't operate in the United States because they're not following our transparency rules, we'd be having a very different conversation here. But instead, they're trying to give the executive branch this immense power to just delete things from the internet, or else, I mean, these fines, you guys, the fines for Apple, Google, Oracle for helping TikTok exist in the United States, it'd be $5,000 times the number of users. TikTok has at least 100 million U.S. users, which means that would be a $500 billion fine.
Although in their defense, I mean, like, that's just like, it would be against the law for them to help in any way. So that's just, they're saying that's the penalty.
Yes,
right?
for breaking the law.
Breaking the law, which is quite steep. Yeah, and that is just an enormous amount of power that can be used for the next TikTok or whatever the next thing is that this government or whoever is next. Like you said, Trump could be back. So, you know, the foreign adversaries list.
Didn't previously, now he does, because he doesn't like Facebook. He was even clear on this. It's not that he likes it. He just doesn't like Facebook.
Like Facebook.
So he doesn't want to.
Well, he also.
But the executive.
He's got a bit of a money crunch, and his biggest donor is a 20% stakeholder in TikTok. Just like Vivek Ramaswamy,
interesting,
called TikTok digital fentanyl until Yas started funding him. And at that point, he got a TikTok account and did collabs with Jake Paul.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. I think you can't with Trump. My bigger concern with a Trump administration is what country is he just going to decide is a problem next? Like, is Mexico going to end up on the foreign adversaries list because Trump's pissed off about something? And then there's a Mexican app that we can no longer have access to because Trump decides that is the problem. Like, this is what happens when you give the executive branch power. They have the ability to use it.
Breach system.
This bill does that. And that's my concern. They could have written this very differently. They could have said TikTok instead of, you know, it's illegal to provide servers to controlled apps via a marketplace. They could have said it would be illegal to provide services to TikTok. They did not do that. This could have been a much more targeted bill.
You know, something else that got organized on TikTok, that uncommitted campaign.
Yep.
A lot of support for the uncommitted campaign.
That's a good point. Although all this happened in the Republican House, the speed of it. So I don't know if that.
Joe Biden said he'd sign it.
Yeah, he did.
He gave the ollie ollie oxen free for the Democrats to make this bipartisan. And now the person who's sweating the most, especially considering this has normally, if Chuck Schumer sees an issue that has China and anti-Semitism on it, he can't wait to put his name all over it.
Yeah.
And he's been very quiet about how this is going to go down, because I think Biden doesn't really want to sign it. And it's going to be very interesting, because what I said with Tom on PX3 is, like, right now, I don't think that there's enough momentum to push this through, although it exploding out of the House is a big wake up call. All the senators are going to have to answer for it. There's going to be a real roll call on this. But I think it probably would die here. They would make other things priorities, blah, 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 blah.
Well, do you really want to piss off the entire Gen Z generation right before an election? But maybe they would if you banned their favorite app. Like maybe that would wake them up.
Trump becomes the champion of Gen Z.
I know. Like I just don't think it's a smart move in an election year to piss off that many people who do have the right to vote, whether or not they tend to exercise it or not.
I think the other question would be, are you winning the parents who actually vote? Who are like, screw this TikTok, my child's a monster now.
Oh, are you kidding? The parents in my life are more addicted than their kids are to TikTok. It's going to piss off millennial parents as well. And some boomers. I know some boomers that love that shit. There's 100 million U.S. users of TikTok, and most of them can vote. So,
wait, like 1 out of 3 Americans are on TikTok?
Yeah,
Am I that out of touch?
Have downloaded it or have made an account. Doesn't mean that they have doesn't.
I have an account. I downloaded it, then I deleted it. So I'm one of them, I guess.
Yeah, I mean,
that's a lot of voters that would be upset or could be upset.
Theoretically, I think that the politicians are willing to roll the dice with it, and Biden seems ready. I mean, he says he'll sign it, put it on his desk, and he'll sign it.
Well, Jeff Jackson just did a video on this after the vote, and he was like, TikTok's probably not being banned. He thinks it's probably going to stop in the Senate.
I would bet that
he thinks it's a play to try and get ByteDance, to scare him. But either way, you're playing with fire here because it could pass the Senate and get signed into law, and then we have this thing just sitting on the books.
Well,
it's dangerous to play this way.
Here's what I would look for: you're only one whistleblower away, or especially because the Democrats really have this in their hands because it's a democratically controlled Senate, and they got to get to 60. So. You are, the Democrats love their letters with, 50 plus experts on it. There could be one letter with 50 plus intelligence experts that now the Democrats are going to have to vote for it because they believed them when they said the Hunter Biden laptop wasn't real and that Trump was a foreign agent. So now we have to believe that and it goes forward. But I don't see
so much of this is coming out of intelligence, and I'm like, these fucking liars.
Hold on. The FBI did some bad stuff in the 50s and the 60s.
Yeah.
And the 70s, 80s, and 90s, and the 2000s. But now, Jen, they're fine.
Yeah.
So just trust the experts. Okay. As a sitting U.S. Senator, here's my thing. The default's no. The default's no unless you can prove to me there's an overwhelming problem that justifies giving the government more power and that your solution will solve that problem. Then I'll come around with you on that. In this instance, the tiebreaker for me would be CFIUS. But until then, I don't want to give.
So let's say, all right, whistleblowers that would change your minds. If a whistleblower came out and said, I'm from the Beijing office, here are the reports that I got, the Excel spreadsheet reports of the data that they said would never get there, that got through the firewall. We have a system. I am now seeking asylum in the United States. Is that credible for you?
There is absolutely nothing you can tell me about TikTok or China that would get me to vote for this bill because this is so far beyond TikTok and China. If this were a bill, if you were to do a new bill that targeted just TikTok and ByteDance in China, this would be a different conversation. This is too broad for that. So there's literally nothing you can tell me.
You're no. There's nothing you can say.
No, 100%.
I'm talking to Heaton then. Senator Heaton.
If I voted on a bill expanding executive power that Jen didn't, we'd all be too busy catching the pigs flying out of my ass to look at the results from it. I'm not going to let Jen anti-govern me. Fuck that. No. I'm just
hard pass.
Silent scene. I can't live with myself.
There's nothing anyone can say.
No. Okay. Yes, there are. So I think that the fears of China, the fears are credible. It is a super control freak authoritarian regime that wants to micromanage the information and minds of everyone in it. That is yes, that is happening. It is not cuddly. The biggest thing for me would be CFIUS. If you had a credible defector whistleblower character that could show that the data's going over there, which I'm actually less concerned about than them juicing the algorithm. That to me is more insidious, and we could go into that later. You could convince me to maybe divest them or spin them off or something like that, but I think the way to do that would be to double down on the firewall. The way to do that would not be to just outright destroy it, which is where we are right now. The practical effect of this bill would be, it would probably, in my opinion, it would just get destroyed. This is going to be because the Republicans under Trump, remember it was previously the Republicans under Trump that were wanting to do this. They tried through executive order. Then they tried to do it through the legislation in Montana. And in both instances, the court struck them down on First Amendment grounds. So they figured out that they can't just ban the thing because the First Amendment will stop them. So what they're doing is figuring out how to they're going to put it in such a way that it's going to get killed by the market effects of this, and they're going to give it a death penalty one step removed so they don't have to go through First Amendment grounds, right? So like if you could come up with a scenario where they're not going to die, they're just going to become autonomous and independent in America, and you coupled that with a whistleblower, I would vote for it.
That's the problem is there's no world in which the TikTok that we have right now survives absent the algorithm that will not be licensed or sold by China.
Okay.
So
I will think about it when this credible threat comes forward.
Okay.
We can revisit this issue.
So you were saying, so if CFIUS came back and said, here, new report.
If CFIUS comes back and says this is a threat to national security, I would probably vote in favor of it.
But would you vote in favor of this bill knowing how broad it is and that it applies to... I know, but like I'm telling Heath, I think you trust me on this shit, that it's beyond China. That
I am almost certainly voting no on this bill if another more narrow bill were introduced and CFIUS said it's a national security threat, maybe. But yeah, yes. So this bill, no. TikTok, maybe, pending CFIUS.
Thank you, Senator.
Pigs flying out of ass. Make sure that gets to the in the soundbite, please.
Patreon.com/we're not wrong. It's where you need to go if you want to support this show. You get a bonus podcast each and every week, and we are going to be talking about Princess Kate conspiracy theories. Jen has been 10 toes deep in the sand. She has no idea what the hell's going on. We're going to explain a Kensington Palace mystery and why the AP thought that a photo for UK Mother's Day was so heavily edited that it should not be distributed because it was an untruthful image. That's all coming up on the Patreon exclusive episode. The Federal Aviation Administration recently conducted an audit on the Boeing 737 MAX's jetline production, revealing numerous problems with the process. This comes at a critical time for Boeing, a leading aerospace manufacturer, which has been under heavy scrutiny following an incident where a 737 MAX 9 jet experienced a mid-air emergency door failure. FAA Administrator Michael Whitaker emphasized that Boeing needs to undertake significant improvements, signaling a departure from business as usual. The audit's findings highlighted issues in manufacturing process control, parts handling and storage, and product control at Boeing. Those specifics were withheld due to ongoing investigations. It was mentioned that the problems extended beyond mere documentation issues, affecting tool management and operational sequences. Notably, Boeing failed 33 out of 89 product audits conducted by the FAA, while Spirit Aerosystems, Boeing's fuselage supplier, failed 7 out of 13 focused audits. The implications of these findings are substantial, leading to all Boeing 737 MAX 9 aircraft being temporarily grounded in the U.S. following that Alaska Airlines incident. In response, the FAA has mandated Boeing to devise a plan to rectify its widespread quality control problems, underscoring the urgency for Boeing to enhance its manufacturing standards and oversight. Jen, I believe you were on one of these planes.
Did you see my Instagram story?
I did. Did you feel safe? And if any, what punishment should there be for Boeing?
Yeah, I took 4 Boeing planes over the course of the last week, and 2 of them were 737 MAX 8 planes. And so I put on my Instagram story, pray for me, when I saw that. Although on the MAX 8, I do know that it was taken out of commission for 2 years. And so when it came back, I was pretty confident that's one of the safest planes I can be on. So just knowing the stats the way I do, and I gave myself a fear of driving because I was afraid of flying. So I started studying the stats and noticed that flying was actually the safest way to travel and driving is unbelievably dangerous. And so I'm still, knowing the stats, I still feel safe on planes, but I feel less safe than I used to.
Yeah.
Because I fly so much in the United States and we have some monopoly problems in airplanes. We basically have Airbuses or we have Boeings, and Airbus can't then become global monopoly. They don't have the supply chain. I mean, they just don't have the ability to make all the planes. And if I want to fly anywhere in the US, I'm pretty much getting a Boeing. I know that. So I think, this comes down to monopoly issues. But then also when it comes to Boeing, I mean, I know enough about the changes that they made. They used to be an excellent American-run company. They had their plants out of Seattle. They did most of their engineering here in the United States. They did have some partnerships in Japan, but Japan was known for having excellent engineering. But in the late 1990s, there was a merger that happened between Boeing and McDonnell Douglas. And there's kind of a joke that McDonnell Douglas bought Boeing with Boeing's money.
Yeah.
Because the managers from McDonnell Douglas are the ones that ended up moving up and taking over Boeing. And they were people that were used to having very small budgets. They were prioritizing returns to shareholders and cost cutting. And so when that merger happened, it was the McDonnell Douglas guy that became the president and chief operations officer. And so since the late 1990s, Boeing has made some very fundamental changes. So instead of them doing most of their engineering, especially like the holistic stuff in-house, they've really outsourced a lot of things. Like they're now outsourcing such major parts that Boeing has lost the expertise that they used to have for the entire plane, because no longer are they just working with a few select companies in Japan. They now have their supply chain all over the world. And so that just operationally, when you have different time zones, when you have people speaking different languages, there's just a lot of different things that happen that make your operations more difficult. They also, apparently airlines, it's a cyclical thing. And so you don't always have giant airplane orders. And so Boeing ended up laying off a lot of their experienced engineers when they weren't getting a lot of orders, weren't able to hire them back. And so they've lost a lot of their expertise. And it's actually gotten so bad that in 2022, Boeing's own shareholders sued Boeing's board because they weren't focused enough on safety. And so the shareholders, which, you know, one of the problems here is that returns to shareholders has been prioritized by Boeing in a way that it wasn't before. And then they also extracted an additional $200 million from the settlement. But the point is that even the shareholders were like, we're concerned for our own safety. And so with all of this happening, this isn't the type of problem that you can just immediately fix. I mean, they would have to get their supply chains back in-house. They'd have to get experienced engineers back. I don't really know how you do that. I mean, they'd have to kind of go back to their old processes. And that's something, it took decades to break to this point.
Yeah.
Do we have decades to get back to safety? Are they actually going to do that? And what it seems to me like if the free market were an actual thing that worked, the solution would be that Boeing would fail. But because we only have two companies in this world that really make airplanes, that's not an option. So I don't know what the fuck we do about this because we still need the airplanes, but we don't have government control of Boeing. It's still in this private company's hands. And so I'm still going to fly just because I need to go places. But I think we are on borrowed time here when it comes to having, and we also have problems that go beyond Boeing. So we have issues with air traffic controllers. We have a severe shortage of air traffic controllers. The New York Times just did an in-depth investigation on this. There was a great episode about it on the Daily. Austin is one of their airports they're most concerned about, actually. And so when you have all these different things happening, you have exhausted air traffic controllers when we don't have enough of them. You have planes that are all fucked up. You have inspectors. We don't have enough of those. There's a lot of different things going on with American aviation right now that I think we're due. I think we're overdue for a crash, and so I feel less safe than I used to.
Because it has been extraordinarily safe over the last, like, 2 decades.
It has, but I think we've let our guard down because of it.
I think, yeah. So before we get to you, Heaton, one of our dedicated listeners is a pilot for a major American airline that we will remain nameless right now, but I asked him for just thoughts on this. He said that business as usual being subtext for trading safety margin for profit margin, something that will certainly come up in the light of day by the NTSB by the end of the summer, but this is a reckoning. And then he said, I cannot overemphasize how substantial the audit failure by Boeing and Spirit Aerospace is. I'm a veteran of this industry and I'm rattled.
Oh, wow.
So like,
what does that guy know?
Well, Boeing's also covering up. So on the way here, it broke that Boeing essentially like deleted the surveillance cameras that they had when they were putting in the faulty bolts that had the Alaska Airlines thing happen. So now they're, you know, I don't think that it breeds a lot of confidence to see that the company is now covering up instead of saying like, yep, we fucked up. This is how we're going to fix it.
And we got a little spice on top when one of the whistleblowers killed himself.
It's very Epstein, the whole thing.
Yeah. Although I looked into that because I agree. Like he literally, I think he gave a deposition and then like went out to a car and shot himself the following day, which is very suspicious timing.
Deposition scheduled for Saturday too. So he's in the middle of this mission and then he's just like, I feel like
that said, I looked into the press release and both his attorneys and his family was like, this took such a massive psychological toll on him. The last 3 years he'd worked there forever. He ended up leaving and becoming a whistleblower, and it really depressed. Like his family was saying, like this took a big mental.
It was not a surprise. It wasn't like
his lawyers sounded that way. His family did not sound that way, based on the very minimal reading I'm doing here.
It wasn't like he was screaming, "I'm not trying to kill myself," like Epstein reportedly was the week before he died.
Yeah, still, wow. But again, should raise some eyebrows. I agree. That is suspicious timing.
Just the fact that they drove the man to be that depressed, like they didn't take his whistleblowing and go like, okay, you've actually discovered some things that we're going to fix. They made the man's life miserable. And I do know that he said that that they had made it impossible for his professional career to continue. Just all of the actions that Boeing has taken smells more of cover up and pushback as opposed to we want to fix these problems.
I think we are rapidly, if not past the point where there's a rational explanation other than you cut corners to save money.
Well,
and now this is a huge issue.
I'm really glad that our pilot friend wrote in. I was joking earlier when I was dismissing him because
is this the one that hates me?
He doesn't hate you.
We have two pilots, both of them hate you.
No,
just joking.
We have multiple pilots that are just like,
we do have multiple pilots. I think we've got like because like there's one pilot that visits me in Edinburgh every year. She just emails me like, "You gonna be in Edinburgh?" And I'm like, "Yeah, we go get a drink."
She's like, "Fuck Jen."
Yeah.
Hate her.
She's Jen neutral. She didn't even remember your name.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, she's Jen neutral. Hates Justin. Hates Justin.
Makes sense.
No, that email is very helpful, Justin, because I'm very much over my head on this kind of thing. Like I have no idea what the perspective is in terms of like, okay, when we're looking at reports like this, how much of this is impactful versus how much of this is like, tidy record keeping or so. I don't know. Right. So if somebody that works in the airline industry is looking at those numbers going, oh, shit, like there's a gremlin on the plane, that to me is much more telling because I don't have any expertise in it. Unfortunately, I don't have a good solution for it.
Trains. Let's build trains.
I have a concurring opinion with Jen, and that I think the free market works. I don't think that this is a free market example because it's not a free market. Like you're correct in that regard. 40%, or to be very clear in this, 38% of Boeing's sales revenue come from the United States government. Another 2% comes from foreign governments that are probably buying shit we give them money for. So 40% of Boeing's money comes from government contracts, right? I look at Boeing and I don't see a competitive environment in there. I see a state-sponsored enterprise like they have in South Korea, or they used to have in South Korea or Japan, where they go, nope, the government has decided we're going to have private contracts, and that's the one the government's going to back. That's not the same thing as, say, like the airline industry, where we can decide whether we're going to go on Delta or United or Klondike or whatever, right?
Klondike?
I'm just throwing them out. Alaska Airlines. I don't know. Klondike's my cute nickname for Alaska.
It's an ice cream bar.
Yeah. I ran out of airlines.
What would you do?
I ran out of airlines.
For Klondike.
So I don't know what to do on this. I mean, on the one hand, like Matt Stoller, Jen's secret boyfriend, who believes that I was actually surprised on his take because he is the most every company should be split into 15 different splinters person I'm aware of, and he didn't want to break it up. He wanted to nationalize it, which I thought was interesting. I would have assumed the Matt Stoller position would be, this is functionally a government appendage anyway. Why don't we just split it into two things and have more rival contracts? He didn't. He wants to nationalize it.
Under the idea that it's essential infrastructure? Is that?
Basically, yeah.
Okay.
Although I think generally when there have been pushes to nationalize things, it's usually been because they're running out of money and there's a fear that they're going to go under if we don't, like Amtrak and things like that. I don't think you'd see the political will for it. And I'll add, while I am
under a President Haley administration, you will.
while I am in favor of there being rigorous federal regulations in this kind of industry, where I think you need to have a lot of oversight and a lot of regulation, I'm not convinced that nationalizing it would necessarily solve all the problems. So I'm not sure what to do here. I would be more open to maybe having more companies splitting them up. I know that there are lots of other aircraft producers, but I guess they're just not doing the same thing. Like you mentioned Airbus. I mean, there's Northrop Grumman, BAE, There are other things. It's just they're just doing military stuff. They're not doing passenger planes.
Well, I mean, the military-industrial complex, they kind of self-regulate amongst themselves on divvying the pie, right?
Yeah.
They don't, like, even when they compete with each other, quote unquote, on like contracts, they very often subcontract to each other to actually fulfill them. Like, it is its own Game of Thrones oligopoly when it comes to stuff like that.
And the planes that we used to have, because it's Airbus, Boeing, and then we had like DC-3s and DC-10s, but the DCs were McDonnell Douglas. So they got gobbled up by Boeing, and that's why we're pretty much down to 2 when it comes to commercial airlines. But
this is a stupid question. The Germans aren't making planes? They seem like they've got their heads on straight
well,
when it comes to
Airbus.
engineering.
Airbus is the European one.
Okay.
It's not German, but like that's
They're
like
French.
Lufthansa is Airbus. Yeah,
There's basically one commercial airline company in America and one commercial airline company in Europe, and that's it.
Can I say that the
$20.
Lufthansa first class, not as good as the American?
You've ridden first class on an international
Yeah,
plane?
look at you, fancy.
Moving
How'd you do this?
That's why I get the biggest cut of this prize.
Oh, is that how you're doing?
Yeah.
How good is our Patreon?
So yeah, I'm very much out of my expertise on this one. I am more rattled than I was at the beginning of the conversation. At the beginning of the conversation, I was going to go, I'm going to fly exactly the same, but maybe I'll tighten the seatbelt a little bit more.
Well, I mean, I would definitely go on more trains for a lot of different reasons. I would take trains for climate reasons and just I enjoy trains, like, but we don't have them here in the United States. So I feel like Europe would be better prepared to deal with something like this because they have alternatives. But my choice here is fly or drive. And even with all these problems, driving is without a doubt the most dangerous way to travel. Yeah. So I'm not going to swap out something more dangerous.
Somebody doesn't hot air balloon.
Well, if one of us was going to hot air balloon, it'd be me, right? Wouldn't it be?
For sure.
I think so.
Looking at my pocket watch while soaring over the trees. Or something.
I thought that's how you got here.
Yeah.
Yeah, you with all your hot air.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nationalizing is interesting because, as you point out, it is kind of a national company.
Yeah, I mean,
it's sponsored, but we don't have any direct line to public accountability with a private corporation. But at the same time, like Boeing was fine as a private corporation before their priorities changed from safety to shareholder returns.
And
so
I think there's a lot of legitimate criticism along those lines. What I would say is, what's the point of having these companies that are essentially dependent on government money if when they fuck up, you're not going to yank their contract?
Yeah.
Or, essentially say, no, fire everybody involved, including the CEO, or we're going to fund, we're going to take part of this money and fund competitors to make sure that we have more options in this space. Like,
that's an idea.
That's the thing that always frustrates me whenever you have essentially public-private partnerships is that, like, the most government activist that I tend to get is there's no point in having these advantageous relationships if they're not going to be Boy Scouts. They don't get to be both.
Yeah.
You can be sleazy cost-cutting guys if you're totally operating out there in the jungle and you can make it work. Great. That's profit maximization. Cool. But if you're getting the majority of your money from us, from the taxpayers, and you don't really have to compete for it all that much, aside from, making sure your bills on K Street are paid, then, like, no, you got to be a choir boy. You gotta make sure that when things are screwed up, there's going to be some kind of answering and accounting for
Although
it.
that doesn't really work in this case because their private contracts are the ones that we're concerned about. Their public ones are their defense contracting, but we're concerned about the planes that we take, which are being sold to Southwest and Alaska and all these different ones. So I do think that when you are creating something that is responsible for lives like this in an infrastructure capacity, I don't think they're saying like, well, you can be cost cutty as long as it's, fully private. This goes beyond where the money is coming from.
They're not fully private. They're not.
They're not. But let's say that we took that 40% out, the government money, that's the war money. That's the fighter planes. If you just left all the private funded stuff, that's still the stuff that we're talking about. At some point, there needs to be accountability for being reckless with essential infrastructure, which is what this is.
I mean, look, it's not like there's no element of, at the very least, shame here. You know, we're going to have an NTSB report where this has already become a public story.
A lot of these
stock has dropped by 25% this year. So
yeah,
there has been at least some fiscal repercussions.
And that, you know, that the window or the door that flew out on that Alaska Airlines flight, which like a miracle that nobody died in that moment.
Proves that you should wear a seatbelt even when you're just cruising.
Yes. That the rivets were not only missing on that door, they were painted over. So you knew that somebody looked at that and just didn't do the job. And so there is, and
then they deleted the surveillance cameras.
Yeah, and there is that was part of the whistleblower. The whistleblower his testimony was, my job was to check these parts that were coming in. And I came back and me and my inspectors, we found like 500 different things. So we came back, reported to Boeing. Boeing said, okay, turns out they got their ducks in a row. We're going to send another person to audit it. And we're going to send 2 investigators. They came back with 50. And he says, wait, really? They got their ducks in a row that fast? That seems odd that they would be able to fix. Because some of the issues that he pointed out were like engineering issues.
Yeah.
And the guy that went and did the audit said, no, they gave us 2 hours to check all this stuff, and then they kicked us out. And Boeing was cool with it. And so, obviously, air travel in America, and I do think we need to balance this out by saying that air travel in America has been very safe. But to Jen's point, it only gets there if you keep it safe.
Yeah.
And I am for full and complete public shaming of Boeing to the point, and up to and including putting political pressure on people that make decisions to keep their coffers full, because this is, or proactive government action from, let's say, a Department of, or Secretary of Transportation to take action to make sure that these issues are either resolved, even if it means keeping planes out of the air, even if it means that prices go up.
Yeah.
Like, there needs to be, any life lost from this point on will be done knowing full well why.
I kind of like your idea of seeding a new company, like seeding more competition. Like if we could do a profit sharing agreement until we get it paid back to the taxpayers. But like, we obviously need more than 2 companies in this world that are making airplanes. I would support my tax money going to something like that, especially knowing that we could get the money back via a profit sharing agreement. Yeah. I would kind of like CHIPS Act, except we don't just give the money away like we did with that one.
We're not wrongpod at gmail.com. Would you say that's fair? We're not wrongpod at gmail.com. A nationally placed collegiate powerlifter who put over 80 pounds of mostly muscle over 4 years writes, it sounds like Heaton is focused on his protein macros, but you may be under consuming calories. Putting on muscle is much easier in a calorie surplus. And since Heaton is now working out, he must eat even more to put on weight. Calories can get confusing, especially when you feel full but don't notice change. But if you're not putting on weight, you're not eating enough. Or to put it in a way that Heaton can appreciate. Heaton is trying to reduce inflation, gain weight, through fiscal policy prudence, protein intake. When any Milton Friedman lover knows that it is always and everywhere a monetary phenomenon, caloric intake.
Wow. Thank you, listener. I'm going to fire my personal trainer and just use you.
This means you get to eat more cheese. Are you excited?
You know what? Like
cheese, bro.
Whenever I start counting the calories, I'm amazed at how much you actually have to eat to put on it. Like I've been, cheese is good. I'm going to have to eat so much more than I'm comfortable with.
In Defense of Cursive writes, I just wanted to mention that at least in my district, elementary schools have recently reinstated cursive education. There are a few reasons why, but a major one is historical. All of our nation's documents are in cursive, so we are making an effort to prevent future generations or to have future generations be able to read founding documents physically if needed.
I love that. Good point.
Passing the sniff test writes,
I think cursive's dumb. Continue.
But you don't want the younger generations to be able to read just old documents?
Read I don't read. If you look at the Declaration, how many times have you read the Constitution in actual handwriting? You just look it up in text form. You can still read it.
Use AI to put it in Comic Sans. These kids will love it.
But all that shit I read in text. I don't read the original document. I read the text version that you can see online.
Passing the sniff test writes, you mentioned the creatively named Pelosi Act about stock trading. But you also talked about cocaine in the White House, and there's a bill in Congress entitled the Helping Understand Narcotics Traces at the Executive Residence Act, or
God.
Hunter Act, that Congressman Greg Steube of Florida introduced to get to the bottom of whose cocaine was in 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. Jen?
Steube's an idiot.
I think you're seeing the
Whose bag, though?
top of
waste-
congressional
Whose
humor.
bag?
It's Hunters. We know it's Hunters, but like, this is a waste of our time. I just hate these
You think he's
games.
relapsed?
What?
I don't think it's necessarily Hunters. A lot of people in D.C. do coke.
I think it's funny. I don't know. I don't care whose it is. That's the thing. Like,
Found out that a friend of a friend hangs with Hunter over the weekend.
really?
Yeah.
Even if it's not Hunter, even if it is, like, I don't know.
Maybe
Who cares?
how about maybe just don't lock up anybody for cocaine. Maybe that's
There's
it's your
that.
body. Like deal with it if they break shit or they hurt people. But if they're snorting stuff, it's their business. If it's I don't know. It makes me uncomfortable that we go, well, yeah, but they're fine because they work at the White House. There are people, they're upper middle class and they're capable of handling it. Whereas like people in a slum, you need to lock them up. Like that's.
But like this particular baggie was left in a cubby, throw it in the trash, move on with your lives. But Greg Steube has to make a big fuss out of it. Like, how about you solve a problem?
I think after watching the State of the Union, I know whose coke it turned out to be.
You think Grandpa's doing a little snow?
Little bumper-o.
I didn't know he was from Florida.
Stonkwatch writes, I work for one of those huge banks that Jen hates, and I'm required to have all my investments in a monitored account. Every trade I do is nearly immediately checked against our insider trading list. If I trade on insider knowledge, I get fired. There's no reason congressional trades shouldn't be monitored and reported within 24 hours.
There you go.
Great.
It's true.
Congress should be regulated the same way I am in finance, subject to 90-day pre-clearance on individual securities and no options trailing. The ability to do unlimited index fund or ETF trading, including commodity and right funds. My accounts are tracked by a complete department for unusual trades and activities. This regulation extends to my family living in my direct household. My wife and kid, my parents outside the home are allowed to have an account with my kid as a beneficiary, writes. These conversations, not just on We're Not Wrong, this happens in many places, always come across as hyperbolic and lacking in nuance. 3 examples illustrate the point. The Higgins-Pelosi make headlines, but we ignore flops. 19 out of 100 congressional members somehow managed to lose money in a year that the market returned 26%. 67 underperformed the S&P 500. Number 2, losses will always look smaller than gains. A 50% loss requires a 100% gain to break even. And 3, variance plays a huge role. With 100 actively trading members of Congress, someone is virtually guaranteed to crush the S&P every year.
This is fascinating. So you're basically applying a market efficiency hypothesis to members of Congress and apparently proving it. That's fascinating stuff. So like as a reminder for folks at home, market efficiency hypothesis is the idea that you're not going to pick a stock. Don't try. Unless you've got specific personal firsthand knowledge of a given industry where you've been in the factory and you've seen it, you're not going to pick the stock. You're gambling. You're basically buying lottery tickets. It's much, much smarter for anybody at the consumer level, 99.9% of the population, myself included, to buy index funds because then you're betting on the market. And this is a fascinating point that members of Congress, even with inside information, are so incompetent they fuck it up.
Some of them are very dumb, but that still doesn't mean that we should be allowing the smart ones to use this information.
And this is what I'm saying. I agree with both of you.
So you're saying you agree with Congress should be regulated the same way I am in finance, subject to 90-day.
I'm agreeing with all of it. I'm agreeing regulate them. I don't change any of my positions. And I'm saying they're incompetent. I'm saying there's a high level of incompetence and greed simultaneously. We should be working at both.
Zoom Congress writes, since the advent of electronic communication, why haven't we sent the legislature home for the majority of their session? They then would only have to maintain their primary residence and continue to work as well. Maybe if they had to stay in their district, they could be more in tune with what constituents want. I liken to county representatives who work during the day and meet in the evenings.
I'm not against it. You would just have to get the boomers to figure out the tech better because that was annoying during COVID. But for the most part, the people that were working in their living rooms were asking good questions. I didn't really see any difference in the quality of the hearings when people were zoomed in versus in the same room. I'm not against the idea.
Yeah, I'm in favor of this. I mean, I will say that you are going to run into there's a kind of balance issue you're going to have where if you want more bipartisan cooperation, that's going to happen if people are in Washington more and they're socializing more. one of the things that Newt Gingrich really pushed back when he became Speaker of the House was don't quit fraternizing with the enemy in D.C. Go back to your district and fraternize with the people. And so if you have less time in Washington, you're going to get most likely less bipartisan things. That being said, though, I think that like even Newt had a good argument, which was like, look, it's your job to represent the people. Like go spend time with them. How we allocate time between being in D.C. and being in a district, I think, is an interesting question. But I would like to have the option of it, of being able to do it by Zoom. In that I can think of lots of, like Justin Amash, who is now running for Senate, like literally cried the first time he was unable to make a vote because he'd fucking showed up every single time. He took the job very, very seriously. And I think like, I don't know, 7 years in or something, he finally had to miss a vote and he felt like he'd let down his district. There are plenty of instances where I think you could be tuned in and doing your job and voting and showing up to meetings via Zoom, and then also being able to tend to your district. So I think this is, broadly speaking, a good idea, and we're just being held back by an atavism.
I also think it's harder to do stuff behind closed doors when there's no, 300 days or whatever in the same building. I think you'd kind of have to reach out to people and possibly have more done in committees if you don't have the offices to disappear to and play ping pong and get boozy and write bills.
Congress question for both of you. Number one, Andrew Heaton, are you going to just max donate or volunteer personally for the Justin Amash senatorial campaign?
I'm very excited that Justin Amash is running for the Senate. I think he's a great guy, and I will add that while I get people that are thrown off by the libertarianism, that you would not agree with him in terms of small government and his economic views. But as a senator and an institutionalist, I think there's nobody better. I've interviewed him specifically about what makes Congress dysfunctional, and I think he has really thought about it. And I could fucking see Justin Amash and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez like teaming up and fixing that institution.
Absolutely.
I think he would be phenomenal for it. I would love to interview him and talk to him about it, but I suspect he'll have better things to do than come on.
No.
So I'll probably donate some money to it.
He made a point to read every bill too, which I really appreciate. And he tells his constituents why he voted specifically, and it's detailed stuff about the policy. And I disagree with him on a lot of economic stuff, but just the fact that when it comes to matters of war, I was happy to have him in the House. There's a lot of things I can agree with him on, and just the fact that he talks about how he votes and why, and understands the system. He sees it's broken in the same ways that I do. I think we need more statesmen in Congress, and he is absolutely one of them. And so Michigan, he's a good one.
Institutionalist, and he understands the incentive structure and why it's broken.
Yeah,
A lot of my talking points I got specifically from that interview, where like he first time put it in my mind. We talk so much about how senators have to raise X amount per day, and it's some crazy number. Like senators have to raise like $5 million every day. They're generally safe. Most of the time they're safe. They're not doing that because they're worried about losing the election. They're doing that because they have to donate it to the party to get a choice seat. And one of the easy things you could do that would reform so much of the system is just let the committees select their own chair. Like what we did prior to started prior to Gingrich, but he really rocket forwarded it, was it used to be that committees were like their own kingdoms that the speaker had no effect over, and it was done by seniority. So if you stuck around, you could not be removed, right? And they went, well, this is bullshit because it's just the oldest guy gets it. So they got rid of it, and then they made it more discretionary, and then every single speaker since then has made it even more discretionary, which is to say more money that you bring into the party. Just have the chairs elect the committees elect their chair. That's something I got from Justin Amash. I think he sees how the levers work and is somebody that would be great inside.
Does he see that he's only going to get single digits in that primary?
We'll see.
No,
I mean, he will.
An independent too, like that.
I thought he was running as a Republican.
No, I'm not talking about him.
Yes,
I'm just talking about the
that's why he's going to get blown out.
We're able to have independent people get elected to Congress. Our system is not a two-party system. That is a lie. But these two parties have now rigged the game to the point that, like, what if you are an independent person and you want to be on a committee? Well, you're not donating a bunch of money to the parties. Like, you get tossed aside because the way these two parties have just corrupted. They've corrupted our system to their benefit, but the two-party system is just, it's horseshit. And so his point is also taken in that way, in that I think we need more independent people there. And I don't think that the Speaker of the House or either of the parties should have the ability to sideline people that don't want to play in their two private clubs.
100%.
Jen, one of your favorites, Katie Porter, will not make the runoff for Senate in California, and then went on Twitter and said that the election was rigged. Your thoughts?
Poor choice of words. I mean, I was pretty disappointed in her for a lot of things with that Senate run. I feel like Barbara Lee would have been an excellent choice. Katie Porter is relatively new to the House. I think that if they had allowed the progressive wing of the party to have a Schiff versus Barbara Lee, that could have been our actual runoff, but instead it's Schiff versus a Republican.
$50 an hour, Barbara Lee? That same Barbara Lee?
Yeah, I like Barbara Lee. She was the only person who had the balls to vote against the authorization for the use of military force, the thing that has us drone bombing people all over the world. She was the only person who said this might be a bad idea, and I will respect her forever for that. And yeah, I just feel like seniority-wise, I hate Adam Schiff. I truly do. So I'm really depressed about the whole thing. And Katie Porter could have stepped aside. Like, her and Barbara Lee's policies are so close.
I mean, but
it didn't have to be that way.
Like, why would she have to step aside as opposed to
seniority?
Seniority.
I think seniority, yeah.
Even though Porter got more of the vote than Lee did, there was no guarantee that if you split that vote, that Lee would get more vote.
Yeah, I still would. Katie Porter's been a congresswoman for 2, maybe 3 terms. Yeah, I love Katie Porter.
So you're playing the result now?
She's representing my home district, and I think she was representing it well. I think she could have just stayed in the House and represented it well, and maybe help Barbara Lee and go late. But as things move forward, it became very clear that there were going to be 3 Democrats that were running, and Barbara Lee her time is short. So I feel like if we were going to have both of these women be senators, I would like to see both of them in the office. Now is the time for Barbara Lee, and Katie Porter could have done it later.
It's the law in California that if you are running for a different office, you have to you can't run for 2 simultaneously. Is that the deal?
I don't know.
Is she still in the House?
No, I think she's still in the House.
So she's just going to remain in the House?
Yeah, she'll be in the House. Yeah.
But she has young children. She talks about it all the time. So it's like, stay in the House for a little while. Let Barbara Lee have a term. Come back later. I don't know. I hate the fact that the two of them split the progressive vote, and now we're going to have a Senator Adam Schiff. It makes me absolutely sick.
Don't know why you would blame Porter and not Lee.
Because we're talking about Porter.
Well, because Porter said it was rigged. That was the initial question.
Yeah, and I think that that's an unfortunate thing to say, because it certainly wasn't rigged. But I think Barbara Lee could have stepped aside too. But at the same time, Barbara Lee has been in Congress at least since the W. Bush administration, because she took that vote. So it's I do see, if they got together in a room, it would make sense. If you were going to pick one of them, I would pick Barbara Lee. That's just, but one of them could have gotten out. Barbara Lee could have gotten out too, for the sake of, stopping Adam Schiff.
I mean, I think
it's an option.
One of them got more votes than the other one. And so that's
but I didn't pay attention to the results of it. I just saw Adam Schiff and barfed and then went on with my day. So yeah.
All right. One-step plan for Heaton to get jacked. Buy a sword! I've never had much interest in gyms and classical strength building routines, but ever since I bought my great sword, it's been irresistible for me to pick up whenever I have time. I just go fucking ham outside until my arms and lungs are sore. As an added bonus, every once in a while when I look around my room, I get to notice it and think, man, I've got a fucking sword. And let me tell you, it's been great for my mental health. We're not going to show the picture because he sent a picture, but he did not say that we can show it. So I'm going to just show it.
He looks like
I'm just going to say he is wearing an Inspector Gadget coat.
It looks like if
hat.
Van Helsing and Inspector Gadget combined forces. It's great.
He looks, and I say this with the utmost respect, he looks like a dude who owns a fucking sword.
He does. He looks like he hangs out with those people in the movie Role Models.
Fans, thank you so much. Milton Friedman, a sword. I love you guys. You guys get me.
Need for Greed writes, to back Jen up on greed being a driver of inflation, you can see it in companies' earnings reports. The companies use the supply chain issue as an excuse to excessively raise prices. You can't have record profits without raising your prices far above the increase of cost of goods sold. In a high inflation environment that you're raising prices to offset cost increase, I would expect record gross revenue and average profits. The reason it happened was that they wanted to make up for losses they suffered during COVID.
This is not my read on the situation. So inflation, I think there's a big consensus that inflation's caused when there's too much money chasing too few goods. between 2020 and now, 2020 and now during the pandemic, we made 30% more currency. The monetary supply is 30% larger than it was. There's way more money in circulation. So it'd be very weird if that was not the driver of inflation. But to your point about record profits,
but it wasn't during the W. Bush years after the 2008 crash.
Did they increase the monetary supply by 30%?
They increased it by quite a bit. And like, I don't understand why inflation didn't go up, because I was sure it was going to, but it didn't. So I do think that there is a connection between record profits across corporate sectors and us paying more money.
I don't think so for two reasons. First, we talked about this last week, but we are talking about all sectors, right? Like all sectors of the economy are affected by this. So if you have people just jacking up prices because they think they can get away with it and that's it, you would also expect other sectors to undercut them. So like movie ticket prices go up, people start doing mini golf or something like that. You don't see that where some industries are increasing prices and other ones are trying to compete with them. All of them, both in America and abroad, all increase their prices. So that's a very odd thing to do. That would indicate that the cost went up in some capacity, or rather they thought they would, which brings me to my other points. You have a situation where during the pandemic, people aren't buying anything. We're buying much less for 2 years. We're not traveling. We're not using gasoline. We're not going out to eat. We're not going to restaurants. So what happens? The profit margins drop because people are selling less things. Lockdowns stop. People resume buying things. They resume traveling. Profit margins go back up again. So you're going to see a huge profit increase from 2022 to now because people are buying things again, which is what happened. The other thing that I would add to that is you have a thing called anticipatory pricing. So costs and prices are not going to rise lockstep at the exact same time. If you're a company, you're either going to get caught with your pants down, which is what happened in the 70s when there was the last big inflation spike. If you look at profit records back then, the profits were low compared to now, because inflation basically snuck up on them. And then they had to go, oh shit, and then raise their prices afterwards. The other way you can do it is pull the gun early, which is what happened. I think that companies looked and went, oh shit, we just increased the monetary supply by 30%, inflation's going to happen. They raise their prices. And when that happens, if you anticipate, if you raise your prices before the inflation hits, you're going to have bumper profits because you've raised your prices before the costs have happened. When you look at the rate of profit versus those things, you tend to see a spike and then an equilibrium, which is what's happening now. When you look at inflation in the various industries, the furniture and electronics industry, the rate of inflation has slowed. That has not happened with, say, candy bars. Based on the listener's email here, I would infer that that means that the greed of the furniture and electronics industries has been sated, whereas it has not been sated by the candy bars. I don't think that's the case. I think this is all structural. The argument that I think has more validity to it, that I would be much more willing to entertain, would be like when Robert Reich, who I cannot stand, talks about like corporate concentration, or like Matt Stoller. When we talk about like monopoly power and inflation coming down river of that, I don't agree with it, but I think it's a far better argument to make.
I've said my piece on this.
Kroger Commander, who I posited last episode was at the head of the Council of Greed that decided to raise prices all at once. We had a bunch of illustrations come in on that. So here we go. There's Kroger Commander.
Oh, these are AI made for this fictitious character. This is great.
First one has a milk carton for a
nice. I like him.
And then there's just a more traditional Cobra Commander, but with the Kroger logo across his chest there. I thought that was very, very funny. Price Cop writes, post-lockdown companies are gouging the public with high prices. Are companies, quote unquote, more greedy? No, but they have realized their prices are far more inelastic than they originally believed. They basically said, damn, no matter how much we charge people, keep buying food. I think companies use the pandemic as an excuse to raise prices. Everyone could just say supply chain, throw their hands up and charge whatever they wanted. If people buy at the high prices, why lower them? It was why for some company to test people's reaction to high prices and not look bad.
I agree.
Again, I'll point out every single industry in America had this exact same thought. And apparently in the world, they all went to high school together or something. If they're really greedy, they would undercut each other. Like you'd have somebody defect if that were the case.
Take out the greedy thing here because that's just like a judgment call. But I just think that it's obvious when you look at how many companies raised their prices and the result was record profits. You know, greed
is being used by political figures.
Yeah,
I get it, but like when we talk about here, I don't think it helps anything.
This is the thing that I get irritated with, and I'm glad you bring this up. I think they are greedy. I think they're operating at 100% greed at all times. That's my issue is, are these companies self-interested? Fucking of course they're self-interested. This is why, like, when companies trot out some bullshit phrase of how they want to support the troops or they want to, like, help some charity, you know it's bullshit because they're there to make money. Like, I don't disagree with any of that. I think that they are self-interested, but I think that self-interest is operating at about 100% capacity at all times, which is why when we get into things where we're looking at...
You don't see, like, the opportunity that they had here, where it's like, okay, this company raised their prices, let's do the same. And across the board, we see the stock market that is just as high as it's ever been. The shareholders are doing fucking great. I don't see this as just a result of, we just have these supply chain issues. Like, if that was the case, if it was just inflation, we wouldn't be seeing these record profits, but we are seeing record profits, which makes me think that there is some opportunism with these companies saying, let's raise some prices because we can. The consumers are paying for it and we can.
I mean, if they can all just do this at any time, wouldn't they? I mean, if they've got everybody over the payroll.
The pandemic just gave them, because none of us knew what to expect coming out of COVID. And so I think this guy's right. I know I saw high prices, but I was like, well, I'm just going to have to fucking pay them because this is what the price is. I think for a while the market was broken coming out of this pandemic and people took advantage of it. And I think now we're being a little bit more choosy with what we're buying and what we're not. And so the market's starting to go back and like be normal. But for a minute there, when we came out of COVID, there was no baseline anymore. And so these companies were able to create the baseline, and now, you know, with supply and demand, that's taking over. But there was this strange thing that I don't think applies to... I don't think it applies to normal times and normal market economics when you have such an enormous shock.
Why do you think inflation is now dropping in those industries? Like in furniture and electronics, it's dropping faster than candy bars. Why would that be?
But because I think the market's starting to like go back to normal times. Okay. I think we're now 4 years into this. Yeah, of course. Because I know if I see really high prices at this point, like I don't really need anything. And so, yeah,
I guess bought a new house. So these would be the two things. And it doesn't sound like, Jen, ultimately we disagree on this point. Does it sound we both agree that they're operating at maximum greed?
Yeah.
Okay. We're in agreement there, right?
I just think there was a shock after COVID.
What bugs me, and it doesn't sound like this is what Jen is saying, but typically when I hear people and they think that companies just became more greedy, that to me, I'm like, we've now departed from economics. We're now having like a very different conversation, and that freaks me out. The secondary thing, which if we both agree that it's kind of self-correcting here, we don't really have a problem, is a lot of the time people go, well, we need to institute price controls. And that's where I go, okay, so we're beginning a thing based on the idea that companies became more greedy, and now we're going to try to mandate the delta between supply and demand. That all, I go, oh, no, we're just going to make this situation worse. I think they're operating maximum greed. I don't disagree with anybody there, or that they're greedy. I think they are. I think that's how they work. I do think that if people aren't spending money for 2 years, you're going to see profits drop. And then if they start spending money again, you're going to see profits increase. And that's exactly what's happened. That's not surprising to me.
But people didn't stop spending money in the pandemic. It just changed. Like, I know plenty of people that redid their backyards and bought a bunch of furniture and bought a second house out in the woods and then furnished that. No one stopped buying food. But like grocery store prices, the meat industry like did just fine. And then they jacked up their prices. Those are going down because I know I personally started eating less meat because it was so expensive. And now, you know, now it's
people didn't like turn off the spigot altogether. But when you look at average American consumption rates and average American savings rates went up on average during the pandemic, and consumption rates went down. And then when we came back to normal, consumption actually spiked higher. So like rather than being a linear line with a dip during the pandemic, it dips and then it shoots up to compensate.
And that's exactly where we did have very real supply chain issues. But I think that is where the opportunities came in, where the companies said, like, we could use this excuse to jack up our prices. Let's see what we can get away with for a while.
The bit where it shoots up is like 2022 to now.
Yep.
But if people are also buying a lot more, that means that demand has gone up, which means that prices are going to go up. And then just generally, I mean, if you're selling more things, your profit margin is going to go up too. So I agree.
Record profits.
I agree they're greedy on all of this. It's
super greedy.
It seems odd to me that they would all agree in a trans industry price fixing conspiracy.
But
that's essentially what it is.
Led by Kroger Commander.
Isn't that how you know, this whole market works, that your competitor raises the prices and so you do too? I mean, this is exactly how it works.
I mean, the whole idea of it is that you're trying to outbeat your competitor by either underselling them or having higher quality or something like that.
But if all of them are getting record profits by jacking up their prices, like, why wouldn't you jump on that bandwagon?
Establish yourself in the market by undercutting them.
Right. So if you're increasing,
that's the greediest thing that you could do.
Movie tickets by 20%, and I go, well, actually, we're going to drop mini golf tickets by 5%. You capture their market share and you make more money, even though you've dropped your price.
But like you just said, all of us were going out all at once. There were understaffing issues. Like, there was more business than they knew what to do with, and so everyone just jacked up their prices for a minute. Like the world is getting back to normal now. It's been 4 years, but in 2022, 2023, when we were talking about this massive inflation, there were still shocks to our economic system that I think created abnormal times where these normal laws did not apply. And so while that makes sense in normal times, if you don't have enough staffing, and so like you can't drop your prices and you can't, you know, run your mini golf place or wherever because you don't have enough people, like there were so many different things about that economy that I just don't think the normal rules applied. And I do think we saw an across the board and record profits that
I think that you look at how much money we injected into the economy versus how much money other countries did. We were not engaging in austerity. Europe was engaging in austerity more so than us. There's a good argument to be made that inflation was the cost of avoiding recession. That basically, if you're a Keynesian, that the government needed to spend a bunch of money to stimulate demand to keep the economy running, and that by doing that and injecting money into the economy, inflation was a result. I think that there are a lot of people probably in the Biden administration who think that that's actually what happened, but they can't say it out loud because inflation is so unpopular. The reason I bring this up is you look at Europe, which was more austere. They have not had as good economic growth as we've had, but they've had lower inflation than us. Our inflation's higher. Like, is it that their companies are less greedy than ours? I don't think so.
They also have price controls over there in a lot of cases. So again, like, we're not comparing things that are even. I think it's probably both. I mean, I think there was an injection of money into the economy that not only happened in 2020, but did happen in 2008. I mean, we had those 0% interest rates for fucking ever. So our financial system, it was due to have this happen going back even before the pandemic. It's probably that. And companies going, we have an opportunity to make more money. Let's see what we can get away with.
Super greedy.
I think it's probably both.
You know, as long as we were agreeing, one, that they did not become more greedy, but we just saw an opportunity.
Well, that's why I want to take that out. Cause like, yeah.
Right. And please spread the word, because this is one of, again, this is not me talking to Jen right now, but a lot of the time when I talk economics with people, like, they do think like prices have gone up in apartments because landlords are more greedy. And like, I think that this is a very unhelpful way of looking at the world. I'm not talking to Jen, but for people that do literally think greed fluctuates, that I think you are doing a disservice and you're setting yourself up for failure trying to understand the world that way. It is structural.
People like Cookie Monster.
People like Cookie Monster. It is mechanical. And then the next bit would be, again, I am saying they are greedy and self-interested. I'm not just pushing back on that at all. Is, you know, what do you do about it? I would say that the situation right now where inflation's finally slowing is,
although it ticked back up this month.
Did it?
Mm-hmm.
I think inflation is going to be almost primarily, if not entirely, a monetary phenomenon. And what you need to do is quit printing money and allow the economy to grow and catch up with it. And we've had prior conversations on this. I don't think price controls are effective. So if somebody went, there are record profits, we need to institute profit controls, I think that the cure would be a lot worse than the disease.
Starvation motivation, right? Workers are generally paid the marginal product of their labor, and making that labor more expensive without an increase in productivity will reduce the demand for that labor. That somebody is unable to afford a home or literally any full-time job is not a bad thing. Actually, it's a signal that they need to acquire skills to make them employable at a higher wage and make good decisions with scarce resources until they do.
This is such... I just find it so rude to assume that someone doesn't deserve to have basic costs of living for working 8 hours a day because you don't respect the job they do. But I can tell you that McDonald's is not going to do very well if you don't have a janitor. If you don't have someone who's cleaning that disgusting ass bathroom and cleaning off the tabletops, doing that 8 hours or 10 hours or however long they do it a day, that is a job that deserves respect. That person does a physical job that I don't want to fucking do. I think it's gross. And that person should get to go home and have a home and food and a level of comfort and respect for the job that they do, because it is essential to every single one of those McDonald's to have that person there, whether you respect those skills or not. So I don't think that person made a bad decision. I think that their work is valuable, and I do not agree with this way of looking at people that do jobs that aren't coding or whatever the hell you think is employable at a higher wage. I don't think
this person is taking a particularly like a personally negative spot. I think he's saying that, or he or she, probably he, is saying that a minimum wage job that does not fully fund a lifestyle is a sign that you need to continue to increase, skills and move up the ladder.
But what this person said is that someone is unable to afford a home, to afford shelter on any full-time job. That's what I think is bullshit. I think if you are working a full-time job in the United States of America, you do earn shelter. And so...
What kind of shelter?
Come on, dude. A home. A home is a home. You don't have to live in a tent, which we do have.
Like, I've lived in tiny apartments. I've lived in a 5-bedroom house.
Okay, and if you want
what is guaranteed?
If you want a bigger home, sure, do what you need to do to make more money, but to afford a home, to have a place to live, because right now we do have people in America, thousands of people who work full-time jobs and cannot afford a place to live, that live in tents underneath the freeway. It's fucking bullshit that we allow that in this country. And so this idea that, like, you should be able, that it should be okay in the United States that someone works a full-time job and not be able to afford a home, I just find so wrong. That's why I have a visceral reaction to this. At the very minimum, if you're doing a full-time job in the United States, food, shelter, at a very minimum, like the basic needs should be able to be covered.
Well, actually, writes, the economic data does tend to indicate that you can raise the minimum wage to a point without significant effects to employment, and most economic professors would agree that the question is where you put it. The issue is that there are several things keeping labor from being an efficient market. There are several market failings. One big one is the difference in leverage between employer and employee, but there are others examples of many employers have near monopoly power over certain jobs in certain areas. Of course, the correct floor would also therefore vary by region and sector. I think Andrew should consider having an educated minimum wage advocate on his show who is more familiar with the studies done in this space. What say you, ignoramus?
I'm not. I want to give Jen the ability to respond if you want to, because I felt like there was a slight pot shot there.
At you?
Oh, it was me? Okay. Yeah. So I think that I broadly agree with this statement. I think that you were right in that I think every economist would say that it's a price point, not a question of if it can. I mean, like, I don't think there are 99.9% of economists, I think, would agree that if we put the minimum wage at $50 an hour, that would cause massive unemployment. So yeah, that's true.
Fascist.
There's the delta, right? I also like, if you could somehow come up with an algorithm that perfectly and on a granular level was able to distinguish both on region, company size, and competitiveness of industry, and then do it on that, you might be able to come up with such a thing. I don't know how you would. I'll say in the meantime, yeah, when you want to make it more tiered and make it more multifaceted, I think it's going to cause a lot less damage. Like, I think having a national minimum wage that's very high would be a very bad idea, because we don't have one economy. Mississippi has a different economy than Seattle. But if you want to do something like New York did, where you have different regions with minimum wages and you have different sizes of companies that are affected so that small mom and pops are exempted, that would be a better way to do it. But I don't know. I don't think you're ever going to get ahead of the whole supply and demand thing for labor. But, maybe I'll bring on somebody. Feel free to email me.
Minimum wage civil war writes, there are two types of workers who are paid minimum wage: teenagers working part-time after school, or older, typically immigrant workers who may be working several jobs to support themselves and their families. When the minimum wage is raised, the restaurant owner has to cut a portion of their employees to cover the raised labor costs. Since the teenagers are perceived to be less reliable employees, they will tend to be the ones who will lose their part-time jobs, and the older employees who may need the job more and are more experienced and serious will be retained and probably given more hours to cover the shortfall. I don't know if I agree agree with raising the minimum wage, but it does tend to benefit one class of workers over the other, and one could argue that the teenagers need the job less.
I think it's a fallacy to say that there's really two types of workers that are paid minimum wage. It's not just teenagers working part-time jobs. I mean, I'm someone who worked in restaurants for 13 years, and I really didn't work with many teenagers at all. It was people that were earning their living in the service industry. It was bartenders and waiters, and there were people. I was in my 20s when I was doing it. When I worked in the dive bar, we were kind of younger, but when I worked at On the Border, most of the servers were older than me. They were in their 30s and their 40s. That's another respectable job that, our janitors, some of them were much older. I think one of the reasons that you hear this all the time, that teenagers are the ones that get the minimum wage, is from minimum wage advocates that want to keep it as low as possible. I think it's an excuse. It's not a reality.
The data I've seen is that about 25% of minimum wage workers are teenagers. So
that's not most. It's not even close.
That's fine. The majority are not. About a quarter are. I think this is another example of where, if you want to do this, doing it on a gradated basis.
Percentage for you only get to be a teenager for 4 years of when you're eligible to work, right?
Yeah, but if a teenager is doing a full-time job already, going to school, and then working on top of that,
well, no one's saying full-time. They're saying minimum wage workers.
Yeah. If someone is doing a job that benefits a company, that person should be paid a wage that's worth their work, not based on their age. So this idea that we should be able to pay teenagers peanuts because of their age, I think that's bullshit too.
I'll say this is something that our European friends do. The British and I think France and Germany have different minimum wages depending on age. And the reason for it is not because teenagers are lesser human beings or anything like that. It's because there is a concern that if you're an employer mandated to hire somebody above a level of value that they are providing to the company, you just won't hire them. So if you put the rate at 10 euros an hour and the 17-year-old kid is not worth that to you, you're just not going to hire them. Whereas if you go, look, for adults, they're going to be 10 euros an hour, but for teenagers, it's 7.50 an hour. That gives them the opportunity to get into the market.
Yeah, but their market is also completely different, because that is a market where you're not paying out of pocket for your education the way we do here. So a lot of these teenagers we're talking about are 17, 18, 19 here in the United States, and they are paying for their university out of pocket. They're paying off student loans. They're also paying for their health insurance, a bunch of things that you don't have to do in Europe. So it's another comparison I just don't think.
Sure. And again, I think it's a bad idea in general. I don't think price controls are a good idea. The big concern, I don't disagree with anything you're saying from like a moral standpoint or an ought standpoint of everybody in America ought to have shelter. Everybody in America ought to have food. I agree with all of those things. My concern that I brought up last episode is that the minimum wage always is the minimum wage or zero. If you put it too high, you're going to increase unemployment. But one of the things that I thought was good about the conversation we had was we arrived at what I think is a very honest option for people when they're looking at this, which is, you're going to increase some people's salary and you're going to increase unemployment. And that's going to go more the higher you put it. So for me, I would rather keep the unemployment low. I view it as an on-ramp to the economy. I'm worried about icing people out to where they don't get any traction. Jen, I think one of the things I got from you was you would rather have some of those jobs disappear if the remaining jobs go up in the wages.
Yeah, and I would fill in the hole with government jobs. I think there's plenty of things that we need in this country that we could fund with government, because that's one of the things that they did in Germany, where if you didn't have a job, I met a dude that his job was picking gum off of the subway. Had to be done, but that's how he got his government services. So if we had, and then we also have just projects, like we talk about potholes all the time, and there's all kinds of menial jobs that could be done while you are looking for the thing you actually want to do. And if we had that be the safety net, we could have nicer communities. We could have people that do respectable things that, help the community while they are in their tough times. And I think it's easier to get a job when you have your basic, shelter, food, those types of things taken care of, while helping the community. I think it's just a more dignified way of.
And I don't think we fully disagree on this. Like I said last episode, I'm in favor of UBI. I think everybody I want to do an episode on the nature of GDP, which is really the metric we always look at. But GDP doesn't look at you're taking care of your parents, or you're doing childcare, or you're volunteering, or anything like that. GDP doesn't factor it in there. I would like for there to be some kind of net that everybody has access to. And one of the things that would be interesting is FDR, who's a really, really big, I think, hero for labor, also had a very different view on it than we now have. So like FDR, who was extremely pro-union, thought public sector unions were basically traitorous. He didn't think they should be around. And he was very much in favor of the WPA, which sounds like a thing, Jen, you're talking about with federal jobs. But he also thought welfare was a horrible idea because he thought welfare would sort of rob people of meaning in their lives. So he was in favor of having more government jobs, but he didn't want welfare to be there.
And I'm kind of more that, like, that's one of the things that holds me back from actually embracing the UBI ideal. Because if people don't know what we're talking about, it's
choosing these
cash.
welfare queens.
Well, yeah, it's giving out cash. It's literal wealth distribution, where I like the idea of, like, if I were to lose my podcasting jobs right now, I wouldn't want to just stop working. I would want to have a way that doesn't like tax my brain and make it impossible for me to create something else or build something else. But would I go out and like mow the lawn in the public parks in order to get my, stipend? Like, I think it's a way to improve the community instead of just handing out cash, which might not be used for the basics of life. Like, I'm not sold on UBI in the way I am on government projects, because the way I think of jobs is working on a project. And when it's working for a project that's done by the government, it tends to make your community better. And I would rather do that.
We're Not Wrong is a production of Dog and Pony Show Audio. Our beautiful, amazing, talented editor is Will Saddleberg. Heaton, what's going on the ORF?
I got inspired by talking to you both a couple of weeks ago on the trial going on in Georgia with Fani Willis and RICO Law. And I went, the fuck is RICO Law? And I've got some thought about putting that in. I've got some attorneys that listen to the show. One of the attorneys that's been on a couple of times, Paul Townsend, has represented El Chapo, among other things. He's done RICO Law. So he is on the Political Orphanage this week talking explicitly about what RICO Law is, how it works, and how it's probably going to play out with Donald Trump. And then we even spent a little bit at the end just wildly speculating about what will happen if he goes to prison. So if you're interested in RICO Law, that's on the Political Orphanage.
Jen?
I am going to do my deep dive on that TikTok bill and give people the details. I will look into the CFIUS aspect of it, but we are trying to get that out the beginning of next week. So it should be done by the next time the three of us are together.
Nice. On PX3, what happened this week? Oh, TikTok conversation with Tom from Daily Tech News Show. And then we're going to have two interviews on the Friday episode. Next week, I'm going to do a thing. I'm actually going to dive into what happens if Trump or Biden die. I have not wanted to do that. I hate talking about the morbid element of it, but people have asked about it enough, and we're at a bit of a lull point. So we'll get super macabre next week, because I want to take more time to research it specifically and get more historical examples. But on Friday's episode, we will have an interview with Gabe Fleischer of Wake Up to Politics, and it's a really kind of heartwarming story. And then another interview about anxiety in politics and how to talk to people that you disagree with, which I think is a really fun conversation that we already did. So that's it for us today. For Jen Briney and Andrew Heaton, I'm Justin Robert Young. We're not wrong.
Jump in. Keep going.
Yeah, let's jump